The man kneaded my waist, neither too lightly nor too heavily, somewhere between flirting and teasing. He leaned over, pressing down on my exhausted body, and reached out to pinch my chin. The man's movements were reckless. His fervent kisses fell upon me again. Drifting up and down, I felt as if I were sinking into the depths of the sea. Then the man looked at me, smiled, and said I could only stay by his side. I let out a cry of terror and woke up from the dream. My eyes stared blankly at my surroundings. The subject of my wet dream was actually the main villain of the book, who was bent on killing me. Although he had a handsome face, 8-pack abs, and was quite skilled in that department. My name is Luo Chu, an unlucky soul who transmigrated into the body of the vicious master with the same name in the book. In the original story, I appeared noble on the surface, but was actually a pervert on the inside, cruel and ruthless. The female lead, Yuan Moli, was exceptionally talented and possessed unparalleled beauty. The male lead, Xiao Chun, had a built-in cheat system and breezed through the cultivation world. But as a veteran reader, my favorite character was the beautiful, powerful, and tragic villain, Lu Qingji. Despite his miserable childhood, it didn't stop him from becoming an upright person. At the age of 14, because of his full spiritual roots, he became the disciple of Venerable Luo Chu. Unexpectedly, the ice beauty in the eyes of the world was actually a pervert who coveted her disciple's good looks. Soon after, the fickle Venerable Luo Chu took the exceptionally handsome male lead as another disciple. She vented all her anger from her unrequited love for the male lead onto Lu Qingji. Because the male lead hit a bottleneck in his cultivation, she wanted to dig out his heart's blood to help the male lead cultivate. She forcefully turned a person who was originally good and upright into the bloody and cruel villain of the book. After Lu Qingji fell to the demonic path, he killed and tortured those who had bullied him, and his master, who once abused him, was one of them. Lu Qingji not only destroyed her spiritual roots, but also had her dismembered by 5 horses. The male and female leads defeated Lu Qingji at the last moment, saving the world. But unexpectedly, when I woke up after crying myself unconscious, I had become a character in the book. After transmigrating, a task dialog box would pop up every hour. I skillfully clicked the red X to close the dialog box asking me to take on a disciple. No matter how much I liked the villain, I couldn't joke with my own life. Xiao Mao said if I didn't complete the mission, I would be struck by heavenly lightning and my soul would scatter. I'd die if I didn't complete the mission, and I'd be killed by Lu Qingji if I did. I said, if you're really so capable, then let the heavenly lightning strike me dead right now. Unexpectedly, a bolt of heavenly lightning struck down in response, landing right in front of me. Xiao Mao and I stood there, stunned and scared silly. Our whole bodies were trembling. I immediately told Xiao Mao, let's go quickly. I love doing missions the most. On the way, a few disciples greeted me respectfully. By the time I reached the viewing platform, the selection had already been underway for some time. The sect leader smiled and told me the disciple selection ceremony was about to produce results. This man had a secret crush on me for many years, but in the end, he was killed by me. A disciple said that only one youth with full spiritual roots passed the test. An old man said, I didn't expect this batch of disciples to be so poor. The sect leader immediately smoothed things over, saying to bring the disciple who passed the assessment for a look. Soon, a quiet child was kneeling before everyone. He raised his head, his face bruised here and there. He looked up with wide, innocent eyes. However, everyone was stunned into place by his blue and yellow heterochromatic eyes. The sect leader said that heterochromia was an ominous sign, and they couldn't accept such a disciple. Xiao Mao reminded me that if I didn't speak up, Lu Qingji would be driven off the mountain. I thought to myself, if I step in at his most critical moment, he will be grateful to me. Lu Qingji knelt on the ground, trembling as he cried out that he had never harmed anyone. The sect leader waved his hand dismissively, saying the immortal sects would not tolerate him and to get off the mountain immediately. The pitiful Lu Qingji was soon being dragged away by someone. He had thought the immortal sects wouldn't be prejudiced against him like ordinary people. But now, how are they any different from those corrupt common folk? Lu Qingji blocked the sect leader's path. The sect leader sent the small Lu Qingji flying with a single palm strike. Having no martial ability, Lu Qingji crashed heavily into a pillar. Under everyone's astonished gazes, I quickly ran over to check on Lu Qingji. Xiao Mao reminded me that I had to maintain my aloof persona and not break character. So I slowed my pace and walked up to him, remarking with disgust, "So dirty." He didn't expect anyone to care about him and called out immortal to me. He tried to get closer, but I quickly took a step back and said sternly, "Don't get me dirty." However, with his heterochromatic eyes, Lu Chengji saw the heartache beneath my cold exterior. He then wiped himself vigorously, tears streaming down his face, looking even more pitiful. Seeing such a small child in such a pathetic state, I really couldn't bear it anymore. Then I slowly squatted down and helped Lu Qingji up, telling him to come with me. Little did I know that he could see through people's souls and easily manipulate their hearts. I raised my hand and carefully wiped the tears from Lu Qingji's face. Supporting him, I gently asked how old he was. He lowered his gaze, his eyes welling with tears, and stammered softly that he was 14. Then, supporting him, I carefully asked if he had a name. He cautiously said he didn't have a name yet, only his surname. I didn't expect that he didn't even have a name. His parents must have cared so little for him. I hoped he would have a smooth and happy life, saving the world with good deeds. I said that from this day on, his name would be Lu Qingji. He never thought that he would one day have a name. He happily threw himself into my arms and thanked me. I thought to myself, the current Lu Qingji is still just a child, still possessing a pure and kind heart. Then I gently picked him up, faced the crowd of the Yunshang Immortal Mansion, and said, "This disciple, if none of you will take him, then I will." Everyone was shocked by my words, staring at me with wide eyes. The old man said, "The child's blue and yellow heterochromia marks him as a harbinger of disaster. I'm afraid it's improper for you to insist on taking him as a disciple." I ignored the old man's words and said for myself, "I only want him as my disciple." A woman also said, "Lu Qingji absolutely cannot stay on the mountain, because all the past demon venerables have had blue and yellow heterochromia." She also said that not taking Lu Qingji's life immediately and letting him leave on his own was already showing mercy. I said angrily, "This is a matter of my Qingya peak. It's not for people from other peaks to interfere." The young woman's face turned livid with anger, her fists clenched. The sect leader quickly came out and told everyone to say a few less words. Su Baiyan, with his eyes closed, said he had a compromise. Everyone turned to look at this Manhwa peak master. The sect leader looked at him and said, "Please, Elder Su, tell us your method." Su Baiyan said, "Since it has come to this, we could perform a bloodletting ritual to avert disaster. This way, we can eliminate the demonic and calamitous origins in his body, which should be an explanation for everyone. If he can survive this tribulation, I can take him as my disciple." I subconsciously refused, saying he was just a child with no cultivation. However, the system soon popped up a mission interface, which actually required me to personally perform the bloodletting ritual on Lu Qingji. I thought this plot point was definitely not in the original book. The kid is so weak, how can he possibly endure it? Unexpectedly, the little Lu Qingji actually volunteered, saying he was willing, because he wanted to stay by the immortal side. I looked at the weak, trembling child before me with pity in my eyes, cursing the system 1,000, 10,000 times in my heart. I sighed and reluctantly agreed, saying that I would personally carry out the bloodletting ritual. From now on, if anyone uses his blue and yellow heterochromia to bully my disciple, I will absolutely not let it go. The woman in yellow was overjoyed upon hearing this and happily ordered her subordinates to go prepare the props. The little one was bound by iron chains, his hands hanging down. The crowd discussed whether he would die. After all, his blood had already dripped and filled a large basin, and he was immortal with no cultivation. Someone said resentfully, it would be better if this disaster star, Lu Qingji, died. Keeping him around might bring some calamity to the immortal mansion in the future. The five peak masters sat in front of the main hall, watching this scene from afar. The disciples all gathered around to check on Lu Qingji's condition. Watching the little Lu Qingji grow weaker and weaker, a hint of impatience gradually appeared in my eyes. It felt like a long time had passed. Why hadn't this incense stick burned out yet? The moment the last bit of incense burned out, I immediately stood up and said, "Time's up." Then I cast a spell to undo the iron chains on the little one. The system also notified me that I had completed Main Quest 1 and Main Quest 2. It restored 20 of my cultivation and gave me a soul revival pill as an extra reward. I told the weakened Lu Qingji not to move and immediately cast a spell to help him heal and recover. His beautiful eyes stared fixedly at me, asking if I had completely bid farewell to the past. I looked at him gently, hummed in agreement, and told him that everything was in the past now. Upon hearing this, his eyes curved into a smile. He said happily, "That's really great." I stroked his fluffy head and said, "Don't be afraid. I will always protect you from now on." He slowly closed his eyes and said he wasn't in pain, telling me not to worry about him. I watched Lu Qingji pass out, and my heart skipped a beat. I quickly called out his name loudly. I tremblingly placed my hand under his nose. Unexpectedly, there was no breath. I hurriedly called out to the system in my mind, asking the system why Lu Qingji had suddenly stopped breathing. Xiao Mao jumped on my shoulder, looked at the scene, and said it didn't know what was happening either. I suddenly remembered that I had just received a soul revival pill. I quickly held out my hand to ask Xiao Mao for it. Xiao Mao reminded me, "The main storyline is only 10 complete. Are you sure you want to use the item now?" With a dark face, I stared fiercely at the pretty little cat before me and said, "One more word of nonsense, and your dried fish snacks are gone." My warning scared Xiao Mao into a cold sweat. It finally compromised and handed me the soul revival pill. The system prompted, "Use soul revival pill on Lu Qingji to bring him back to life." My items -1. Feeling a faint breath gradually returned to Lu Qingji. I thought to myself that it seemed there was no major problem for now. The night wind blew into the room through the window. Inside the room, Lu Qingji was sleeping soundly with his eyes closed. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, breaking out in a cold sweat. His blue and yellow eyes showed a moment of confusion. He stared blankly at the beams on the ceiling, not yet understanding where he was. He remembered that the immortal had saved him and told everyone she would take him as her disciple. He immediately sat up in bed, panting heavily, calling my name over and over again. I softly called out, "Lu Qing." Then I slowly drew back the bed curtains, smiling as I said, "You're awake. Are you feeling any discomfort?" I was holding a bowl of steaming hot medicine. I told him to lie down, as it would be troublesome if he pulled at his wounds. He stared at me without blinking. Seeing his body tremble as he prepared to cry again, I sighed and said, "You didn't cry during the bloodletting. Why are you starting to cry now?" I raised my hand to wipe the tears from his eyes and said gently, "You should start calling me Master now." He didn't seem to understand what I meant and repeated my words in surprise. After a moment, he stammered out, "Master." My eyes crinkled with a smile as I softly acknowledged him. What I didn't expect was for the boy to immediately sit up and throw himself into my arms, calling Master over and over. I patted his head and said, "Get up. You've been unconscious for several hours. You need to eat something first." Lu Qingji knelt on the bed and happily hummed in agreement. I was amused by his childish behavior. While I was feeding Lu Qingji his medicine, he looked around the room and cautiously asked where he was. I said, "This is a side room in Yinbin Pavilion. You can live here from now on." He asked me if Yinbin Pavilion was my home. I said, "It used to be my home, but now Yinbin Pavilion is our home." I didn't expect to be tackled by the little guy again. He smiled and said he would definitely be good to me for his entire life. His blue pupil shone. He secretly vowed that from now on, he would live only for me. Lu Qingji lay quietly in bed, staring at the ceiling. Then he hugged the quilt and began to happily flail around on the bed. Such a wonderful, venerable immortal was actually his master. He would never be alone again. But an accident happened soon after. The wooden planks of his bed snapped with a crack, and Lu Qingji, quilt, and all fell through. He sat amidst the wreckage, hugging the quilt, momentarily unsure of what to do. Then he walked out of the room step by step, deciding to go ask me what he should do. After a while, the door to Yinbin Pavilion was quietly opened. Lu Qingji softly called, "Master." There was no response. The thin figure quietly approached Luo Chu's bed. He lifted the covers. An orange cat was sleeping soundly next to me. Lu Qingji's originally excited little face fell. He stared for a long time. It was unclear what he was thinking. He looked at the little cat sleeping soundly and snoring, and for some reason, he found the cat to be an eyesore. Then he reached out, grabbed the orange cat by the neck, and looked at it for a long time. He then casually tossed it off the bed. The orange cat rolled to the wall. It didn't cry out or make a fuss, just kicked its legs a bit and slept against the wall. Lu Qingji carefully slipped into the covers, curling up his body. He was so small. With every breath, his nose was filled with an icy, orchid-like fragrance. It was Master's scent. Master smells so good. Lu Qingji stayed still for a moment, then began to inch over like a worm, secretly moving closer to me. When I woke up, the sun was already high in the sky. Last night, I dreamed that I was entangled by an octopus. I ran and ran, but I could never escape its grasp. In a daze, my muddled consciousness gradually cleared. I rubbed my somewhat sore neck and opened my eyes. Beside me, a person was sleeping with a flushed face. His small hands and feet were all over me. I suddenly understood why I had that dream last night. Seeing Lu Qingji sleeping so soundly, I didn't want to wake him. I gently moved Lu Qingji's hand off of me. Suddenly, I remembered the wet dream I had at the beginning and the drowning gaze of the adult Lu Qingji in the dream. Lu Qingji's hand snaked back onto me. My face instantly turned beet red. I cursed myself in frustration for my wild thoughts. He's still just a child. How could he do something like that? After several repeated attempts, I still failed to move Lu Qingji away. The little guy just squeezed right into my arms. His two hands wrapped around my neck, hugging me like an octopus. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry, I cast a spell, slipped away, and stuffed a pillow into the arms of the sleeping Lu Qingji, who knew that just as I tiptoed off the bed, Lu Qingji woke up and started calling for me. Lu Qingji crawled out from the covers, his hair messy. A small tuft stuck up high on his head, looking a bit dorky. I couldn't resist. With a deadpan expression, I pressed down on that tuft of hair and said I was going to prepare breakfast and he could sleep a little longer. Lu Qingji didn't reply. He just crawled over and hugged my waist. His nose once again caught that faint fragrance. I held his shoulders and said if he was bored, he could go to the woods on the back mountain to cultivate and come back in an hour. He secretly lowered his eyes, which were filled with grievance. He said sullenly, "Disciple will listen to master's every word." I gave Lu Qingji a beginner's cultivation manual and told him to go practice with it in the small woods. Why didn't I teach him personally? Because I don't know how. How would I know how to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? Isn't that venerable Luo Chu's new disciple from yesterday? Why is he cultivating alone on this back mountain? A group of cultivators in white robes, the disciple uniforms of Zhaowang Mountain, walked over. Lu Qingji recognized the one who wanted to throw him off the mountain yesterday. Lu Qingji glanced at him and then continued to study the manual. Zichu saw how cold Lu Qingji was being. Feeling that he was losing face, Zichu was both angry and resentful. He snatched the manual from Lu Qingji's hands. "Let me see that what kind of precious manual senior brother is looking at." Seeing the manual his master gave him being snatched, Lu Qingji shouted, "Give it back." His fists slowly clenched. I thought it was some exclusive secret manual. Turns out it's just a beginner's manual. Don't you want it back? How about I give it back to you if you kneel to me? Having the Venerable's personal disciple kneel to me would be such an honor. In this life, I only kneel to my master. Lu Qingji's face tensed, a dark undercurrent in his eyes. Since you're unwilling, then this is the only way. Zichu casually tore the manual to shreds. He threw the pieces into the air and said, "Here, I've returned it to you." Zichu looked at Lu Qingji with a smug expression. Lu Qingji suddenly raised his eyes to glare at him, his blue and yellow heterochromatic eyes unfathomably deep. They surged with intense, killing intent. The disciple stared, stunned, and couldn't help but step back. Lu Qingji clenched his fists. Lu Qingji seemed to sense something. He slowly reined in his anger and reverted to his obedient appearance. He stood his ground and shouted, "Don't push people too far." Zichu was the first to snap out of it. "You actually dare to glare at me?" Several disciples followed the command and pounced, punching and kicking Lu Qingji. Lu Qingji's black hair hung messily by the side of his face. His clean white robe was covered in either bloodstains or large footprints. Zichu walked forward and pinched Lu Qingji's swollen and battered face. "You think you're noble just because you changed your name? You were born lowly to the bone. People like you deserve to live in the mud for your entire life. What gives you the right to be Venerable Luo Chu's disciple? Whether he can be my disciple is not for you to discuss." A clear, cold female voice came through, melodious yet carrying an imperceptible anger. A golden halo appeared around me. I retorted, "He's not qualified? Then are you qualified?" The disciples were dead silent, holding their breath. A mix of surprised admiration and the shame and fear of being caught doing something wrong. "Why don't you fight back when you're being bullied?" I ignored them and looked down at Lu Qingji, who was lying on the ground. Lu Qingji's fists were tightly clenched. Large teardrops fell one by one. Those who complain about life's unfairness are useless. What kind of person you want to become depends on you, not on the world opinion. Lu Qingji quieted down and looked at me, trembling. He worriedly thought, "Is she angry because I didn't fight back?" I said sternly, "As my disciple, you absolutely cannot be a crybaby. However others treat you, you should treat them the same." Lu Qingji's eyes widened as he looked at me in disbelief. He seemed to understand that I didn't like delicate, weak little flowers. He knelt on one knee, clenched his fist, and said he understood. The disciples, under Luo Chu's pressure, didn't dare to make a sound. Suddenly, the kneeling boy on the ground quickly got up. With extreme speed and immense force, he threw a punch at Zichu. Zichu looked in disbelief at the person hitting him, never expecting him to actually dare to strike. Immediately after, Lu Qingji clenched his fist and struck again. This time, Zichu barely managed to block his punch. Lu Qingji and Zichu started wrestling on the ground, using fists and feet. Even their teeth weren't idle, biting viciously. The few people watching nearby felt a shiver in their hearts. I watched this spectacular scene with appreciation. In the end, Zichu was beaten so badly that he repeatedly begged for mercy, shouting that he surrendered, and then started wailing. I then called for Qingji to stop. Don't kill him. Seeing Lu Qingji stop at my command, Zichu scrambled backward in a panic, leaving a wet trail on the ground. It seems you didn't listen well to what I said yesterday. In that case, from this day forward, you are all expelled from the Yunshang Immortal Mansion. The disciples' faces turned ugly. Venerable Luo, we are disciples of Xuanyu Peak. You can't just dispose of us as you please. I said lightly. I will explain things to Peak Master Xiao myself. I believe my words still carry some weight. Now all of you get lost. The faces of the disciples present turned pale. Venerable Luo Chu's word was her bond. It seemed they were truly done for this time. My waist suddenly tightened. I felt a small hand on my waist. I straightened up slightly and looked down. I saw Lu Qingji burying his face in my abdomen, his hands wrapped tightly around my waist. His lips were pressed together tightly, and his thin back was trembling. He hugged Luo Chu and began to wail. I pushed Lu Qingji away and said seriously, "This venerable has never taken a disciple before. Now that you are my disciple, you are the best. Do you understand, disciple?" Lu Qingji wiped his tears and broke into a wide grin, paired with his battered and bruised face. It was both pitiful and comical. I said, "Doesn't it hurt your cheeks to smile like that?" Lu Qingji chuckled and said, "Master, you can't abandon me in the future." I won't abandon you." I thought he must be afraid of being abandoned again. I reached out, took Lu Qingji's small hand, and said to him, Let's go home and eat. Your little wooden bed, I've already had someone replace it with a new one. From today on, you're not allowed to run into my room at night. Doesn't Master like it?" Lu Qingji looked at me with watery eyes. "It's not that Master doesn't like it. It's just that you're 14 years old now. It is improper for a disciple and Master to sleep in the same bed. You are young and haven't studied much. I will teach you these things slowly in the future." Lu Qingji had an obedient look on his face. If Master doesn't like it, disciple won't do it. In the following days, I diligently taught Lu Qingji cultivation techniques. He did not disappoint my expectations, working hard and making rapid progress. In terms of daily life, Lu Qingji took care of almost all the cooking and chores, managing Qingya Peak in an orderly manner. I was served very comfortably, living together day and night. The bond between master and disciple grew deeper. A year later, Lu Qingji successfully established his foundation. I smiled and told him I would wait for his return. After Lu Qingji left, I felt extremely bored. I grew vegetables and fed chickens. I grew flowers and brewed wine. The days passed one by one, but he still hadn't returned. I asked Xiao Mao when he would be back. If he doesn't come back soon, my life will turn into a farming novel. Xiao Mao clutched its belly and said it also wanted to know. I really miss the sweet and sour pork ribs and stir-fried meat he makes. I think your strategy is correct. If you build a good relationship with Lu Qingji, maybe he'll really spare your life in the future. Do you even need to say that? Look how well I've raised my boy. For the sake of my life, I still have to cling to the villain's thigh. Whose thigh is Master going to cling to? Before I could turn around, that person quickened his pace and hugged me from behind. "Master, long time no see. Disciple has missed you greatly." That voice, it was gentle and clear, no longer as childish as it was a year ago. I was stunned for a moment before getting up to look at the person. The 17-year-old youth had handsome features, having grown and developed. He looked otherworldly and untainted by dust. I quickly ran over and said, "Why are you back early?" The youth was already taller than me. I felt my ears getting a little hot. Turning my head, I suddenly saw Qingji and felt very surprised. Qingji hugged me tightly. He leaned close to my ear and said, "Master, I'm back." I smiled happily and said, "Welcome back. It's been a long time. My little cub has grown so big." Chengji whispered in my ear, during these 3 years of training, I thought of you every single moment. I blushed a little. I gently pushed him away and said, you're a grown man now. Why are you still acting like a spoiled child, just like before? Just then, Zigue brought over the dishes and called me for lunch. Chengji's eyes narrowed dangerously as he thought, Master, who on earth is this person? Zigue placed the fragrant and delicious dishes down one by one. I watched, feeling very gratified. Then, Zigue asked me, Master, who is he? I smiled and introduced them to each other. Chengji thought unhappily, this is my junior brother? Has Master taken a new disciple? Chengji looked at Zigue with a serious expression. Zigue smiled and greeted Chengji. Knowing I was in the wrong, I tugged on Chengji's sleeve and said, let's eat together. Chengji shook off my hand and said, you guys eat. He said he was a bit tired and would go back to his room to rest first. I sensed that Chengji was unhappy. I was stunned for a moment and said, all right, I felt that after not seeing him for 3 years, my little cub had grown distant from me. After my noon nap, Chengji thoughtfully poured me a cup of tea. I lounged on the chaise lounge. After my cub returned, he not only took over the management of Qingyao Peak again, but also took very good care of my daily life and meals. But why did I feel that his attitude towards me had become distant? Chengji pushed the teacup towards me, telling me to drink. But I wanted more to see the injuries he had sustained over these few years. Chengji refused and got up to go to the bamboo forest to practice his sword. I was about to call out to him, but Chengji had already left, leaving me with a slightly distant figure. I reached out my hand, wanting to stop him in vain, to ask what was wrong. But Chengji was already gone. The orange cat was lazily eating dried fish and asked me what was wrong. I said with some dejection, I feel like Chengji has become much more distant. He used to be so clingy, but now he's so cold to me. It feels like he changed too quickly. The orange cat told me not to guess his thoughts, as long as I didn't go against him. I nodded, feeling that the orange cat was right. In a mottled bamboo forest, Chengji brandished his sword with overflowing energy, as if venting the dissatisfaction in his heart. The autumn wind was bleak. Fallen leaves scattered, turning to mud and ground to dust. Only when practicing the sword could he feel peace in his heart. Just then, Zigue suddenly said, Senior brother, you're so amazing, and said he wanted to practice sword techniques with him. Before he could finish speaking, Chengji swung his sword at the bamboo next to Zigue. The bamboo snapped with a crack. Zigue said, a little scared, Senior brother. The doubt that had been in his heart these past few days slipped out. Senior brother, do you dislike me? Chengji sheathed his sword and said expressionlessly, no. Zigue blushed a little and said, that's good. I really like you, senior brother. Chengji was a bit speechless and prepared to turn and leave. Zigue hurriedly started recounting the praise Master had once given Chengji. Hearing this, Chengji paused for a moment. He turned his head and asked Zigue, did Master really say that to you? Zigue said with certainty, yes. Master told me that senior brother suffered a lot as a child, but you are a very, very good person. The corners of Chengji's lips curled into an irrepressible smile. He asked with some anticipation, how good? Zigue stretched out his arms as far as he could and said very cutely, Master said you are this good. Chengji was blooming with joy inside. He patted Zigue's little head and said, I'll teach you sword practice next time. The gentle afternoon sun shone into the room. Chengji made tea and brought it to me, but by then, I had already fallen asleep. It was a beautiful kind of quiet. Chengji said disciple is coming in and brought the tea inside. Chengji walked to my bedside and only then discovered that I was already asleep. Looking at my sleeping face, my small face innocent and cute, Chengji gently caressed my cheek. He said with some guilt, disciple shouldn't have deliberately given you the cold shoulder these past few days. But then he asked with a sense of grievance, Master, how could you take someone else as a disciple without a word? The deep affection in Chengji's eyes seemed to want to engrave me in his heart. Chengji gently pulled me into his arms. The suppressed love was somewhat suffocating. Gazing at my rosy little mouth, Chengji repeatedly stroked it with the pad of his finger. Chengji leaned down gently and said he knew that Master dislikes insubordination. Chengji lovingly rubbed his face against my cheek and said, disciple reveres and loves Master. The next moment, Chengji took off his top and slipped into my quilt. As the sun set in the west, I woke up slowly with a big yawn. I remarked how comfortable that sleep was. The orange cat looked at me with some disdain for sleeping from noon until dark. The next second, the orange cat tugged at my sleeve ingratiatingly, telling me to quickly look at the system prompt. I opened the system panel, saw the main quest, and clicked yes. Main quest, drink with Lu Qingji under the moon. Use the Han Chun San on him. I was shocked. I have to use Han Chun San on Qingji again? I picked up the orange cat and shook it back and forth, yelling, "Have I gone crazy, or have you?" The orange cat said again that if I don't complete the mission, heavenly lightning will strike me down. I speechlessly accepted reality. The orange cat was very pleased with my pragmatism. I thought, anyway, it only says to use Han Chun San. It doesn't say I have to sacrifice my body. Beautiful misunderstandings are most likely to happen on a cherry blossom night. I went to the door of Chengji's room and knocked for him to open it. But I knocked for a long time and no one answered. I thought he wasn't there. I pushed the door open, only to see a scene that made me blush. Qingji had his back to me. His long hair was scattered across the bed like a waterfall. His clean, slender back made me realize something in an instant. I quietly approached his bed and muttered softly about how he hadn't even covered himself with the quilt. But then, Qingji turned over. I saw that he was hugging my clothes and saying, "Master, I like you so much." I was completely stunned. How could it be like this? Just then, Qingji woke up. He shot up from the bed, blushing slightly, and said, "Master." I quickly backed away and said awkwardly, "Sorry to disturb you." Qingji grabbed me. He pulled me in his arms and said, "Master, don't go." I blushed and told him to let go of me first. After all, he was completely naked. But Qingji wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me close to him again. Qingji murmured, "Master, I like you." I speechlessly pushed him away, but the Han Chun San in my sleeve fell out. The Han Chun San fell to the ground, the bottle cap came off, and the crystalline liquid spilled onto the floor. I thought, this is bad. Qingji bent down and picked up the Han Chun San. He brought it to his nose and sniffed, confirming it was Han Chun San. I blushed and asked him to give the Han Chun San back to me. He smirked and asked me, "Were you going to use Han Chun San on your disciple?" No. Qingji pulled me into an embrace, looked me in the eyes, and said, "Master is lying." This Han Chun San clearly fell from Master's sleeve. I blushed, not knowing what to say. The first time in my life, I tried to do something bad, and I was discovered by my disciple. I asked nervously, "Qingji, what do you know?" Qingji's hand ran through my hair. He suddenly asked me, "Master, do you know why everyone fears the blue-yellow heterochromia?" Qingji explained, "The world fears the blue-yellow heterochromia because it can see people's souls." I said in shock, "What? It can see other people's souls?" Qingji asked me again, "Why did you sneak into my room in the middle of the night to drug your disciple?" Qingji pinned me against the wall, cabinet style, and asked, "Can't Master think of an excuse to prevaricate with your disciple?" My face turned bright red. I vehemently denied it. I did not. Qingji smiled wickedly and said, "Disciple is overcome with lust. I want to have a taste of Master." I stared at him blankly. He gently kissed me. I was stunned for a moment. How could he do this? He gently released me and said with emotion, "Disciple likes you." I pushed him away. "We are master and disciple. We can't do this." I slapped him across the face and asked him what on earth he was doing. I raised my hand to slap him again, shouting at him to wake up. Qingji grabbed my hand. He moved close again and said, "Master, don't be angry. Disciple knows he was wrong." I asked nervously, "What are you going to do?" Qingji asked, somewhat amused, "Is Master afraid of me?" Qingji suddenly moved a little further away and said, "I'm sorry. Disciple was too hasty." Just then, Qingji suddenly raised his hand and cast a spell on me. I was about to say something, but I had already passed out. Qingji caught me as I fainted, helping me to stand more steadily. At that moment, a glint flashed in Qingji's eyes as he glanced at the orange cat outside. The orange cat hurriedly pretended to lick its paws, feigning that it hadn't heard anything. Qingji said with a wicked smile, "But I only trust a dead cat's mouth." Then he cast another spell, striking at the orange cat. The orange cat meowed and jumped around. Dodging Qingji's spell, the orange cat pounced on me, telling me to wake up quickly. Qingji pushed the orange cat away with a look of disgust, telling it to be quiet. The orange cat was surprised that Qingji could understand it. Qingji told it not to ask what it shouldn't. Qingji picked me up in his arms. He threatened the orange cat, "Don't let Master know about what happened today." He then asked if the orange cat was the one who gave the Han Chun San to Master. The orange cat, sweating nervously, pointed to the sky and said it was given to Master from above. Qingji asked if it was given by the heavenly Tao. The orange cat insisted it wasn't lying. Qingji told the orange cat to scram with a look of disgust. The orange cat scurried away. Qingji gently caressed my cheek and said, "Master, you can't seduce your disciple like you did tonight anymore. and he gently kissed my temple. I was completely unaware of all this. The next morning, looking at the table full of delicious food, my taste buds were cheering. I quickly put some more food on both my disciples' plates. I sighed with feeling it's so good to have my disciple back. I feasted heartily, not remembering what happened last night at all. I asked, a little puzzled, Chengji, why are you looking at me? Chengji said gently, I feel that Master has lost a lot of weight. You should eat more. The two disciples got up to get the soup from the kitchen. I decided to wait for them to come back before continuing to enjoy the food. The door creaked shut. Seeing the orange cat's listless appearance, I was a bit puzzled. What happened so early in the morning? The orange cat was a little sad. How could it tell Luo Chu what happened last night? I looked at Mission 4 and was very troubled. It was the male lead. The system wants me to take the male lead as my disciple and personally bestow the Kunwu sword upon him. I asked the orange cat with some confusion, why is it Mission 4? What about Mission 3? The orange cat laughed it off and said the system had a bug. I pondered. I remembered that the Immortal Alliance conference was in a month. Although Xiao Chun was an outer sect member, he showed extraordinary strength in the competition. This battle not only allowed Xiao Chun to capture the heart of the female lead, Yuan Moli, but also made him famous throughout the world. And it was from this point on that Lu Qingji began to live a tormented, pitiful, unloved, and arduous life. I sighed at Chengji's pitiful fate in the original book. The more I thought about it, the sadder I became. Who could stand such a contrast? They're both in the same book. Why should the male lead get everything so easily? Just then, the door was pushed open. Qingji and Zigui came back with the heated soup, looking at their smiling faces. I thought, in this life, since it's me here, I will do everything in my power to protect him for the rest of his life. I told the two of them to come and sit, as I had something to say to everyone. The two happily replied, yes, master. After they were seated, I took a sip of tea and asked, do you feel any pressure for the Immortal Alliance conference in a month? Chengji said confidently, disciple has been cultivating for a long time and is fully prepared. I will definitely get a good ranking. I smiled faintly and said, the Immortal Alliance conference is held to allow disciples from various sects to exchange pointers. Just do your best. I thought, the system's main quest wants me to take Xiao Chun as a disciple and personally grant him the Kunwu sword. What if Chengji ends up fighting against Xiao Chun? What should I do then? But Chengji was thinking, Master looks very worried. Is she afraid I'll be disappointed if I don't get a good rank? Chengji thought, Master is so cute. I won't let her down. Time flew by like a white steed flashing past a crack in the door. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. On the martial arts arena, Chengji slashed down with his sword. His opponent couldn't withstand his power at all. He trembled and said, I surrender. The match ended. Chengji was victorious. Chengji humbly said, you let me win. The disciples below were all saying, Lu Chengji is actually so powerful. I said with some gratification, as expected of the good disciple I taught. You've really brought me honor. The master of Changchun Peak, Zhu Qianying, covered her mouth and smiled coquettishly. I heard Xiao Chun also made it to the finals. Who do you think is better, him or Lu Qingji? I took a sip of tea and said, the two of them each have their own merits. There's nothing to compare. On the martial arts arena, Chengji waited for his opponent in the final match. The light sound of footsteps was heard. Xiao Chun entered the arena. After announcing their names, the two took their stances. Chengji thought, this person has outstanding talent. He's a good prospect. Chengji thought, then I'll just have to defeat him, so that master will only have eyes for me. Xiao Chun thought, this person is clearly smiling, but for some reason, he gives off a very dangerous feeling. The referee came on stage and announced the start of the final match. Chengji attacked first. His sword strike was simple and unadorned, coming down with an indomitable momentum. Xiao Chun hurriedly dodged. He thought, this person's speed is so fast. The two fought faster and faster. Amidst the glint of blades and shadows of swords, their figures became somewhat indistinct. The disciples below felt that both were very strong and were all guessing who would win. A moment of carelessness from Xiao Chun allowed Chengji to find an opening. Chengji seized the opportunity. With another strike, his sword stopped right at Xiao Chun's throat, decisive and dangerous. Chengji said calmly, you've lost. Xiao Chun, being quite the gentleman, directly admitted defeat. Chengji smiled, thinking I got first place. Master will be happy, right? At this moment, however, I was a bit awkward. I didn't quite know what to do. This didn't follow the book's plot at all. What should I do to resolve this predicament? I shook the orange cat, asking it what to do. The orange cat said to follow the original mission's instructions. I tugged at the orange cat's fur and asked, "Isn't this making things difficult for me?" The orange cat had no solution either. I sighed and said, "I know." I turned my head and saw that the sect leader of Yunshang Immortal Mansion, Yun Xingyi, was announcing that Chengji had won first place and was preparing to bestow the Kunwu sword upon him. Chengji knelt respectfully, ready to receive the Kunwu sword. Just then, I teleported and took the Kunwu sword. Chengji called out in confusion, "Master." Chengji thought Master wanted to personally award it to him, but reality was cruel. I walked past Chengji to Xiao Chen's side and said bluntly, "This venerable one sees that your aptitude is not bad. Are you willing to be my disciple?" Chengji abruptly stood up and shouted, "Master." Xiao Chen was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly said he was willing. I handed the Kunwu sword to him, but my heart was breaking. This was clearly meant for Chengji. Xiao Chen quickly declined, saying, "This is senior brother Lu's sword." The crowd on the side was sighing in dismay. Why did Luo Chu insist on giving the Kunwu sword to Xiao Chen? I shook my head and said, "This sword is not suitable for him." I seemed to suddenly understand something. This sword was an ancient divine sword. Chengji was not suited to use this sword. That must mean this sword could only bond with Xiao Chen. I turned my head and asked Chengji what he thought. I was also helpless. Chengji had clearly won first place, yet I had to give the sword to Xiao Chen. I thought, Chengji must be very sad. Maybe I should take him out to relax later, buy him some nice food. But Chengji suddenly raised his head and said, "It's just a sword. As long as Master decides, it's fine." The others started to speak up. "But this is the ancient divine Kunwu sword. This Lu Chengji just gave it away like that. He's too generous." I turned back to look at Chengji. Chengji was so well-behaved it made one's heart ache for him. I handed the sword to Xiao Chen again. Xiao Chen still tried to refuse. I was getting impatient. This stupid mission was so troublesome. Just then, a clear female voice said, "This Kunwu sword should belong to senior brother Lu." She questioned how I could gift this sword to a new disciple. I turned to look at her and asked who she was. It was actually Yuan Moli. I thought, so it's a novel's female lead. This Yuan Moli is worthy of being the female lead. Her entrance is different from everyone else's. But why did it feel like the female lead had no feelings for the male lead? The master of Changchun Peak, Zhu Qining, also spoke up, "Luo Chu, you are being too biased." At this point, even sect leader Yun Xingyi couldn't watch anymore and said that my actions were indeed somewhat inappropriate. I was trapped in an awkward situation. How am I supposed to do this mission? I'm out of ideas. System, can't you give me another option? At the critical moment, it was still up to Chengji. Just then, Chengji took the Kunwu sword from my hand. He turned and handed the Kunwu sword to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen looked at Chengji in shock. Chengji smiled and said, "Junior brother, just accept it." At this moment, I suddenly shivered, feeling a chill. Xiao Chen still didn't take it. Chengji directly tossed the sword into Xiao Chen's hands. Xiao Chen felt a familiar, yet strange power coming from it. The sword seemed to have been born for him. I thought, the mission is finally complete. I breathed a sigh of relief. Xiao Chen held the sword and looked at the sect leader. The sect leader was gratified. The Kunwu sword had finally recognized its master. But right at this moment, Yuan Moli rushed forward, shouting, "No, this sword cannot be given to Xiao Chen." Yuan Moli thought, in my past life, Xiao Chen used this very sword to kill Lu Chengji. I was a bit speechless. I asked her why not. Yuan Moli silently moved closer to Chengji and looked at him with a pitiful expression. I thought, look at that shy and resentful little glance. It seems she's interested in Chengji. Chengji looked at me with a hint of disgust. Then he suddenly gave me a brilliant smile. I looked at Chengji speechlessly and gave him a meaningful look, signaling him to check out Yuan Moli. Chengji asked helplessly, "Master, what's wrong?" Chengji suddenly leaned close to me and asked if my eyes were uncomfortable. Yuan Moli clenched her fists. She didn't understand why Chengji wouldn't even glance at her, but was so intimate with Luo Chu instead. I quickly pushed him away. If only Chengji had a bit of perceptiveness, thought the female lead would have been his. I faked a cough and decided to take matters into my own hands. I walked towards Yuan Moli and asked her if she was willing to be my disciple. Everyone was speechless. This Luo Chu script for accepting disciples was exactly the same. Behind me, Chengji called out "Master" somewhat dejectedly. Yuan Moli, on the other hand, hurriedly said, "I am willing." Yuan Moli thought, this way, I can get close to Lu Chengji openly and honorably. I nodded. Now, both the male and female leads were my disciples. But the master of Changchun Peak, Zhu Qining, was not having it. She said I had taken all of the top 3 as my disciples. I ignored her and left with Qingji. Zhu Qianying was furious, saying I was going too far. Yin Xingyi stopped her. Everyone left. Xiaochen called out to Yuan Moli. Yuan Moli turned around with a smile and asked him, "Is there anything else?" Xiaochen asked bluntly, "Miss Yuan, do you dislike me?" Xiao Chan thought. The look she gave me just now was filled with hostility. Yuan Moli was truly speechless. She didn't expect Xiao Chun to be so sensitive. A single glance could make him sense a hint of crisis. The girl in green, Yuan Moli, asked Senior Brother Xiao, "Why would you think that?" She said, "We are both under Venerable Master Luo Chu's tutelage now. From now on, we are Senior Brother and Junior Sister." Senior Brother Xiao scratched his head and apologized, saying he had misunderstood his junior sister. She thought to herself, "Towards this person before me, it's not as simple as dislike. I simply hate him to death." Senior Brother Xiao said to her, "Then I'll be in your care from now on, Junior Sister." Yuan Moli silently looked at Senior Brother Xiao Chun, thinking how much she had loved him in her past life. Even if he couldn't forget Luo Chu, she would always stay by his side. But after Yuan Moli and Xiao Chun got married, he actually ignored her objections and insisted on fooling around with those women who resembled Luo Chu. The world didn't know the inside story and thought Yuan Moli was being unreasonable, if not for her current status and cultivation level, which made it impossible to kill Xiao Chun. She might have acted long ago. Xiao Chun shook Yuan Moli's shoulder and asked her what was wrong. Yuan Moli said she was fine, just a little distracted. Xiao Chun laughed heartily and said it was getting late, offering to walk Yuan Moli home. Yuan Moli laughed heartily and replied, "Then I'll have to trouble you, Senior Brother." The night was exceptionally beautiful tonight. Moonlight spilled across the land. In the courtyard under the night sky, the trees rustled. I was lying in bed, covered by the quilt, sleeping. At this moment, with a sizzling sound, a black figure appeared before me. He gently traced my lips with his finger. He muttered to himself, "Master already has me. Why does she still need to take in some insignificant people as disciples?" He seemed to be stunned. He moved closer, caressing my cheek. He said to me, "Master's love is far too cheap." He brought his face close and blew a breath at me. Everything was developing just as I had anticipated. He thought, "It's all right. In the future, I'll make it so Master can only see me." I continued to listen to him ramble with my eyes closed. "Master, your disciple truly loves you." At this moment, a dark shadow appeared behind him. It said to him, "She doesn't care about you at all. Why bother deceiving yourself?" Lu Qingji turned his head to look at the dark shadow and asked, "Why have you appeared here?" The dark shadow said to him, "You are of a half-demon body. The blood of the demon clan flows within you. Even if you descend to the 18th level of hell, I can find you." The dark shadow floated to the window. It said to him, "This woman looks perfectly ordinary. Why must you wrong yourself by insisting on staying by her side?" The dark shadow floated to his ear and said to him, "Kill her. Kill all the cultivators of the Yunshang Immortal Mansion. The supreme position of the demon clan will be yours and yours alone." Lu Qingji told it to shut up. Accompanied by a hissing sound, he gripped his long sword, extremely angry. Lu Qingji drew his long sword and slashed down, telling the dark shadow to get back to the abyss. "Don't you dare have any ideas about my master." The dark shadow told him that he couldn't kill it. "If you insist on attacking, the one who suffers will be your master." Lu Qingji touched my cheek again. My expression was contorted in pain. I trembled all over, saying I was in so much pain. Lu Qingji caressed my cheek. He asked with heartache what was wrong with me. Lu Qingji turned his head and said to the dark shadow, "What on earth did you do to Master?" The dark shadow said to him, "This is just a little trick to make her fall into her most feared nightmare. I hope Lu Qingji will consider my proposal carefully." I trembled all over, still crying out that it hurt. Then, the dark shadow vanished. Beads of sweat rolled down my face. I looked to be in great pain. I slowly opened my eyes and looked around weakly. I found myself bound in iron chains. The chains rattled. I wondered, where on earth is this? Have I been kidnapped? At this moment, the sound of footsteps approached. Clop, clop, they came towards me. His hands were behind his back. He smiled and said to me, "You're still alive." Lu Qingji was wearing black clothes. He said to me, "It seems Master's fate is quite resilient." Wearing half-fingered black gloves, he drew his long sword. Then he said to me, "The person I hate most in this life is you." And he placed the blade against my neck. Then he grabbed my neck with his hand. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was so scared I trembled all over. I thought, "Don't kill me." Then, he said with a sinister smile, "Go die." I suddenly woke up with a start from the dream, shouting, "Don't kill me." I clutched my head, panting heavily. I saw Lu Qingji beside me, comforting me. He said, "Did you have a nightmare? You were talking nonsense just now." I flung his hand away, extremely angry. I said to him, "Don't touch me." Lu Qingji was very surprised. He didn't expect that I was actually afraid of him. He didn't expect the little kitty to be so scared. It quickly jumped onto my bed. Then I calmed myself down and said I was fine. I reassured myself that it was just a nightmare. Then I took Lu Qingji's hand. I said I was groggy from sleep just now and asked if I had hurt him when I hit him. Lu Qingji held my hand back and caressed it, saying he was fine. Ha ha ha. He laughed loudly and said it didn't hurt, telling me not to worry. I shyly pulled my hand away. I told him there was something I wanted to discuss with him. He tucked the blanket around me and said, "If Master has something to say, just say it." I said, "Now that I've taken Shao Chun and Yuan Moli as disciples, we can't have them living at the foot of the mountain anymore. I plan to tidy up the 2 adjacent rooms so they can move in." Lu Qingji said hesitantly, "Have them move over here?" He seemed lost in thought. Then he turned his head and said to me, "All right," smiling brightly. Then he got up and said, "Let's leave it at that for now." He smiled and said to me, "Master, you should get up and eat first. Your disciple will go and tidy up the rooms now." He turned and walked outside. I said to him, "This is really a lot of work for you." A rustling sound came from inside the side room. Inside, there was a table and a few stools. Lu Qingji was diligently cleaning the room, sweeping back and forth with a feather duster. After a while, I came to see him and brought him a cup of hot tea. I praised him, saying, "You've cleaned this place up really nicely." But to my surprise, I heard a squeaking sound. The sound was terrifying. It turned out there was a little mouse under the table. It was the one making the squeaking sound. I was so scared I screamed loudly. The little mouse was also startled. With a loud crash, the little mouse and I fled in opposite directions. I screamed loudly, "There's a mouse. Why is there a mouse here? I'm terrified of mice." Lu Qingji patted my shoulder, telling me to calm down. I said to him, "Qingji, there's a mouse in the room." I threw myself into Lu Qingji's arms and said to him, "Quick, catch it." Lu Qingji held me tightly and said, "Master, there's no need to be afraid. Your disciple is here. You can leave everything to Lu Qingji." He used his left hand to create a red circle, like a ball of concentrated energy. Then, with a wave of his hand, he threw the little mouse into the air. The little mouse was like a plaything in his palm, completely under Lu Qingji's control. Then, the little mouse was burned black. It fell heavily to the ground. The little mouse never would have thought that it came in fine, but couldn't leave in one piece. Lu Qingji stroked the hair on my temples and said to me, "You can open your eyes now. The mouse has been taken care of in a jiffy." I slowly opened my eyes. I thought that really scared me to death. Unexpectedly, what came into my view was Lu Qingji's handsome face. It was a bit awkward for the 2 of us to be so close. I quickly pulled myself out of his embrace. I thought, how embarrassing. Lu Qingji quickly moved behind me. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Disciple." I didn't actually see anything just now. He rested his chin on my shoulder, asking me to pay attention to him. Then he continued to act cute with me, saying, "Don't ignore me, okay?" I didn't turn around or say anything. He pretended to be angry and said to me, "Since you're ignoring me, I won't be an eyesore here anymore." He muttered as he walked away, "I made some new pastries this morning. I was planning to eat them with Master after tidying up the side room." Hearing this, I called out for him to wait. He was secretly delighted, thinking his tactic had worked. Lu Qingji turned his head and said to me, "Is there anything else you need?" He seemed to be eagerly anticipating what I was going to say next. I disappointingly said to Lu Qingji, "Are those new pastries really something I've never had before?" Lu Qingji said, "Of course." I said shyly, "Then I'll just have a little taste." Lu Qingji happily told me to wait a moment. He would go to the kitchen and bring the pastries over. I said angrily to the little cat, "You saw the mouse just now. Why didn't you catch it? You made me lose face in front of my disciple." The little cat held its head and said, "I'm so noble. How could I do such a menial task as catching a mouse?" Actually, it didn't dare to catch it, because this was a mouse created by the main villain's illusion magic. Then, Lu Qingji came in carrying a large bowl of pastries. The rich aroma wafted over. 3 days later, the sun was bright. The scenery in the valley was very beautiful. A handsome man with a slick-back hairstyle said, "We are about to activate the formation and enter the Netherworld Ancient Realm. Before that, he has a few points to remind everyone. Because the Netherworld Ancient Realm grows stronger with the strength of those who enter. You will have to go through 3 levels of trials." Lu Qingji and I were also in the crowd. I was disguised as Zhang Sisi, a disciple of Changshan Peak. Although the ancient realm contains countless magical artifacts and treasures, it depends on individual fate and opportunity. Everything you see in the Netherworld realm is from the past. After everyone enters, you must not try to change the original course of events. Otherwise, you will be devoured by the ancient realm and die. In the original story, after Venerable Yuan learned that Shao Chun was injured, he forced his way into the ancient realm, wanting to dig out Lu Qingji's heart's blood to heal him. I thought, this time I'm accompanying them disguised as Zhang Cici. If I can prevent Shao Chun from getting injured, then the tragedy of Venerable Yuan won't be repeated. At this moment, someone called out, "Senior Brother Lu." Lu Qingji also heard it. Yuan Moli said to Lu Qingji, "When we enter the ancient city later, let's go together. That way, we can look out for each other." Lu Qingji coldly said to Yuan Moli, "There's no need." Yuan Moli pleaded, "Just let Ali follow you." Yuan Moli reached out to pull Lu Qingji, but was flung away by him. Lu Qingji turned his head and said to Yuan Moli, "Please conduct yourself with dignity." Yuan Moli looked at Lu Qingji, extremely embarrassed, at a loss for what to do. At this moment, a hand gently patted Yuan Moli and said to her, "If Senior Brother Lu is unwilling, you can follow me." It turned out to be Senior Brother Shao Chun. He said to Yuan Moli, "I will protect you well." At this moment, Changsheng Peak disciple Pei Yu patted his chest and said to Yuan Moli, "Junior Sister Yuan, if you're willing, you can team up with me." Then, another group of men gathered around, vying to team up with Yuan Moli. Seeing this, I stepped forward and said to them, "Everyone, stop arguing. First, let's listen to the sect leader finish explaining the important points. It's not too late to discuss teaming up after we enter the ancient realm." Hearing this, Pei Yu turned his head to look at me. His expression was one of complete shock. He asked me, "You're Zhang Cici from Changxing Peak? Junior Sister Zhang? I didn't expect you to also get the qualification to train in the ancient realm." I touched my face, thinking my disguise wasn't bad. Even Pei Yu, from the same peak, didn't notice anything different. At this moment, a familiar hand wearing half-fingered gloves grabbed me and asked, "Are you Zhang Cici?" Lu Qingji held my hand and said, "Junior Sister, this name of yours is really interesting." He brought his face right up to mine. It felt like we were about to kiss, which was really awkward. Had he recognized me? I said with a fake smile, "Senior Brother Lu, don't joke with me." I thought, I've used an appearance-altering technique and a voice-changing technique. I won't be easily recognized. He brought his big face closer again, bit by bit, pressing his forehead against mine. I blushed shyly and asked him if there was something on my face. He took a few steps back and said, "No, Junior Sister is overthinking it." I thought, this guy Lu Qingji is actually a master flirt in private. He has a whole routine for teasing young girls. The sect leader waved his hand and said, "Everyone be quiet. We are activating the formation now." Everyone surrounded him in a circle. A red wheel appeared at everyone's feet. Pei Yu said with a shocked expression, "Is that the thing?" Yuan Moli rubbed her eyes. Then, everyone vanished from where they stood. Two little sparrows chirped on a branch. Then, with a loud rumble, a red wheel shot down from the sky. With a splat, a cloud of mist crashed onto the ground. I was leaning on Lu Qingji's shoulder, muttering, "It hurts." Then everyone looked up ahead in shock and involuntarily said, "What is this?" Before them was an ancient city. The large characters Huajian Kingdom were written above it. A tall, long city wall appeared out of nowhere in front of them. Below the wall, the three words Huajian Kingdom were written in blood. Yuan Moli was shocked. It wasn't like this in her previous life. Could it be that her rebirth caused the scenery in the netherworld ancient realm to be different? According to immortal records, the Huajian Kingdom suffered a devastating disaster. I didn't expect it to appear here in the netherworld ancient realm. I looked at Lu Qingji and asked, "How do you know that?" I also slapped away Lu Qingji's mischievous hand from my waist. Lu Qingji smiled ambiguously and said, "It's all because Master taught me well." At first, I was startled, thinking my identity had been exposed. But on second thought, what he probably meant to say was that his master had taught him all this. This kid doesn't forget to praise me, even when we're outside. Not bad, not bad. It's just, when did I ever teach him these things? Lu Qingji naturally took my hand, interlocking our fingers. He looked at me in my daze and asked, "Junior Sister, what are you thinking about?" He looked at me with a grin and said, "You're so lost in thought." I came back to my senses, coughed awkwardly twice, and said, "It's nothing." Lu Qingji said to follow them and take a look inside the city. I looked at the many people ahead and nodded with a serious expression. What was shocking was that compared to the terrifying black mist swirling outside the city gates, the inside of the city was actually a scene of peace and harmony. An old man was enthusiastically promoting his goods to everyone. Tonghalu, big red Tonghalu. A young couple with their child was also shouting, "Fresh meat mini wontons." Freshly wrapped mini wontons. Both Lu Qingji and I thought of jingling. No matter how you looked at it, this didn't seem like what an extinct ancient kingdom should look like. We of the Huajian kingdom haven't had foreigners come in for many years. A plainly dressed old man came forward to greet us. I asked the old man how long he had lived here and if he had ever been outside the city. He said he had never been out and didn't know what it was like outside the city. Lu Qingji's and my expressions both grew solemn. It was obvious that something was not quite right with this old man. I leaned closer to Lu Qingji and whispered, "Have you noticed? The people here have no other expression on their faces besides smiling." Lu Qingji looked at the people before him, the corner of his mouth curling into a playful smile. He said with a sincere face, "You're really amazing. You even noticed that." After walking for a while, the group arrived at the market center. Peiyu wondered, why is there a red money pouch on the ground? As he was about to bend down and pick it up, his eyes glanced to the other side. He saw that there was another one up ahead, and not just one. The moment Peiyu picked up the money pouch, a sword flicked the red money pouch away. It was Lu Qingji with his sword. He had stopped Peiyu from picking up the money pouch. Peiyu turned his head to look at Lu Qingji and asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" Lu Qingji said, "I've heard there's a folk belief. You're not supposed to pick up a red money pouch that has been dropped on the ground. Some wealthy families will arrange a ghost marriage for a daughter who died young and unmarried. They put some money along with a lock of the girl's hair in the pouch to seek a fated person. If someone picks it up, that girl will, on the 7th day after her death, take her fated person away to get married in the underworld." Xiao Chan said in surprise, "There's such a thing? How come I've never heard of it?" Peiyu also said, "It's just a money pouch." Is Lu Qingji overthinking things? It was probably dropped by one of the townspeople by accident. Lu Qingji sneered. Then he drew the sword from his waist and slashed at the red pouch, revealing the contents of the money pouch. Sure enough, it was copper coins tied together with a strand of hair. Peiyu gasped and fell to the ground on his bottom. The others also hadn't expected it. Such a bizarre thing was actually true. I crossed my arms, looked at Lu Qingji, and asked, "Is this also what your master taught you?" He smiled and said, "Of course." My face darkened with speechlessness. He really just says whatever comes to mind. When did I ever teach him these things? Molly said, "It's getting late. Everyone is tired. Why don't we find an inn to rest first and investigate tomorrow?" She naturally placed her hand on Lu Qingji's shoulder. Lu Qingji subtly pulled away. Then he turned and stopped me, who was standing to the side. He gently asked what I thought we should do. Then, Lu Qingji and I left, holding hands, leaving Yuan Moli standing there with a dark expression. She gritted her teeth and silently repeated my fake name, angrily saying, "Just you wait. Sooner or later, I'll make you pay." The group arrived at a spacious and magnificent inn. Everyone excitedly divided up the rooms. Xiao Qin walked over with a key. He said, "You and Yuan Moli are both women, so you can share a room." I was shocked for a moment, then smilingly prepared to take the key from Xiao Qin's hand. But just as the key was about to reach my hand, it was snatched away by someone. It was our villain, Lord Lu Qingji. He dangled the key in his hand and said with a wicked smile that he wanted to share a room with me. Xiao Chun stammered, "That's not very appropriate, is it?" Yuan Moli said, "Men and women should not be intimate. This is against propriety." Lu Qingji said with righteous indignation, "I am weak. My cultivation is mediocre. He's staying with me to protect my safety." Looking at Lu Qingji's meaningful smile, I said with lines on my face, "Then thank you for your care, senior brother." Xiao Chan said, "Since you've agreed, then you and Lu Qingji will take one room, and he and Yuan Moli will share the remaining one." Yuan Moli, puffing her cheeks, wanted to say something more, but was pulled by Xiao Chun into the other room. After entering the room, I sighed and closed the door. I felt really tired today. But who knew? Suddenly, I was hugged tightly from behind. Behind me was a scorching chest. The hand on my waist was still calloused. I struggled hard to break free from Lu Qingji's grasp. I knew this little brat was up to no good. I turned, wanted to slap this little brat to death, but Lu Qingji grabbed my hand and pinned me against the door. Lu Qingji leaned in close, gazing at me affectionately. I cursed at him, asking what madness had possessed him, but my face betrayed me and blushed. The next second, his scorching lips descended. He pried open my teeth with his tongue, invading like a wild beast. The hands holding me grew tighter and tighter. His breathing became more and more ragged. I was kissed until I couldn't breathe and could only passively endure Lu Qingji's demands. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Qingji slowly pulled away, and, as if not yet satisfied, he kissed my lips again. I immediately slapped him backhanded and cursed, "You shameless brat." Lu Qingji touched his reddened cheek and didn't make a fuss. He just stood there obediently, smiled, and said, "Junior sister, you were right to scold me." He explained that I looked like an old acquaintance of his, and for a moment, he couldn't control his feelings. If I weren't afraid of hurting this little brat with my powers, I would have definitely taught him a good lesson. I said sternly that Lu Qingji must sleep on the floor tonight. If I caught him overstepping his bounds again, I wouldn't forgive him. I said I was going to wash up first, that he was not allowed to follow, and not allowed to peek. He crossed his arms and said with a smile, "Junior sister, rest assured." Lu Qingji stripped and sat in a hot bathtub. Amidst the steam, his chest and abdominal muscles were faintly visible. As I wiped my hair, I thought about how his words and actions towards me today were bold and unrestrained, like a peacock showing off its feathers. I put down the towel. I thought, he's nothing like my good little boy. But who is that old acquaintance he mentioned? Suddenly, my hand touched something hard. It was a book with Huajian Kingdom's secret history written on it. Dressed in plain clothes, I sat on the bed, stroking the book. I wondered what on earth this was. Then I picked up the book and examined it carefully. From the title, it seemed like a storybook. A young thief was about to starve to death due to a famine. He was saved by the gentle-voiced princess of the Huajian Kingdom. His name was Chu Jie. After that, Chu Jie turned over a new leaf and joined the army. Due to his outstanding military achievements, he was made the Guardian General. I flipped through the contents of the book. It turned out to be the story of the Huajian Kingdom's princess and the general. I wondered if the Huajian Kingdom in this book was the same as the current one. Anyway, I was bored, so I'd see if I could find any clues in the book. Lu Qingji tiptoed to my bedside, softly calling my name. Seeing that I didn't respond, he lifted my bed curtain. Unexpectedly, I was already asleep. He climbed onto the bed. He thought, she can fall asleep even when sharing a room with me. She really has no guard up at all. Then, he quietly lifted a corner of my blanket. He thought, the night is long. I should sleep with her so she won't be lonely. The moment he touched my body, Lu Qingji instantly stiffened, his face flushing red. He wrapped his arm around my waist, not too lightly and not too heavily. He rested his chin on my shoulder. His voice was low, elegant, and deep. He whispered, "Master." At this moment, on the street outside the window, came the sound of a young girl's bell-like laughter. Startled by the sound, my ears twitched. I heard the strange sound from outside clearly. Then I snapped my eyes open. I wonder what that sound was. I turned around and saw Lu Qingji was actually on my bed, propped up on his arm, looking at me gently. With no time to question him about climbing into my bed, I immediately reached out and covered his mouth, which was about to speak. Then I pushed him down onto the bed and held him down with both hands. I motioned for him not to make a sound, then raised my head and asked him, "Did you hear a strange sound?" He was shocked by this scene and nodded stiffly at a loss. Lu Qingji suddenly wrapped his arms around me. We both heard a peculiar sound. Lu Qingji was lying on the bed, and I was on top of him with my hands pressed against the bed. I said, "It sounds like a woman's laughter." The sound made me break out in a cold sweat. Lu Qingji sat up, holding me in his arms. He pressed his face against my chest. He said, "That sound is Junior sister's heartbeat." He was panting heavily. I was also panting heavily. With a whoosh, I jumped off of Lu Qingji. I thought I could never have taught such a smooth-talking disciple. I sat on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. I told Lu Qingji to stay put. I would go to the window to have a look. I went to the window and stealthily pushed it open a crack. But I was immediately stunned. The scene before my eyes truly astonished me. Outside, gongs and drums were beating and firecrackers were crackling. A group of men in red clothes were joyfully playing music. In the middle of the procession was a wedding procession with a four-bearer sedan chair. It was surrounded by a crowd of onlookers. In the middle of the large, decorated sedan chair sat a bride. On her straight head, she wore a head covering with embroidered tassels. I quickly closed the window. I felt that something was wrong. I said to Lu Qingji, "Something's not right outside. Let's go down and see." Lu Qingji smiled faintly, very happy. He thought, in her urgency, she even started calling me Qingji. Lu Qingji teased me, saying, "I'll listen to whatever Junior Sister says." I hurriedly walked outside with Qingji. The moonlight tonight was exceptionally bright and clear. Unexpectedly, Pei was also downstairs watching the commotion. He greeted us. I asked him, "Why are you guys here too?" He said he noticed something was off with the townspeople, so he decided to follow and see. Suddenly, there was a tragic cry. It turned out that Yuan Moli's hand had been cut. A man was tightly gripping Yuan Moli's palm. She was shouting loudly for him to let her go. Seeing this, Lu Qingji shouted, "Junior Sister Yuan." Then he drew the sword he carried with him. Lu Qingji swung his sword and knocked the man back. Yuan Moli said she was scratched and bleeding from the scoundrel's grip. All we heard was a loud bang. The bustling crowd turned to look at us. To our great shock, this group of people, bearing their fangs and claws, surrounded us and lunged forward. I told them that the sound just now had startled the crowd, and they were all swarming towards us. Behind the crowd, there was a house with an open door. I realized that this house across from us could serve as a temporary shelter. Lu Qingji temporarily dispersed the attacking crowd, urging us to take brief shelter in the wooden house. We hurriedly ran into the wooden house. Afterwards, Lu Qingji slammed the door of the wooden house shut. Panting, Peiyu asked what was going on. Why would the common people suddenly attack us? Lu Qingji explained that they weren't breathing and hadn't been alive for a long time. Someone must be manipulating all of this from behind the scenes. Lu Qingji said that after the disaster that struck the Huajian kingdom 300 years ago, no one should have survived. Everything we saw during the day must have been an illusion. Everyone was shocked to hear this. Xiao Chun hastily asked, "Where did Junior Sister Yuan go?" I angrily questioned him. "Wasn't Yuan Moli with you the whole time?" Xiao Chun said he thought she was right behind him. Xiao Chun yanked the door open, saying, "It's so dangerous outside. I have to go find her." Lu Qingji said Yuan Moli was right outside. It looked as if she had already been assimilated. Yuan Moli stood stiffly outside, mumbling, "The princess and General Chu, a match made in heaven." Yuan Moli's expression was dark, and she repeatedly chanted, "The princess is devastatingly beautiful. The princess has the heart of a bodhisattva. My heart is with the princess and the general." Isn't this from the picture book I read last night? What I expected even less was that Peiyu and Xiao Chun said in unison. You saw that picture book too? Peiyu and Xiao Chun turned to look at each other, asking in disbelief, "You saw it too?" I said, "That picture book wasn't a coincidence. Someone deliberately let us see it. And the story of the Huajian kingdom's princess and general might be more than just a story." The more I thought about it, the more terrified I became. Just then, a hand rested on my head, comforting me. "Don't be afraid." Lu Qingji gently stroked my head, saying not to be afraid, that he was here. He then explained that we should wait for the crowd outside to thin out before following to take a look. Yuan Moli was likely assimilated because her skin was broken. I looked at Chengji with admiration. I didn't expect him to remain so calm and composed in such a dangerous situation. Lu Qingji seemed to notice the change in me and turned his head to look at me. He pulled me into his arms and asked what was wrong. I shyly said it was nothing. I thought to myself, this kid's flirting skills are getting more and more impressive. The procession endlessly shouted, "The princess and General Chu, a match made in heaven." As the procession moved further and further away, we quietly followed behind it. Unexpectedly, we followed the procession all the way to the front of the imperial palace. The next scene made our eyes widen. I had never seen such a sight. A man wearing blood-red clothes and a half-mask walked out. He slowly descended the stairs, step by step. The large bridal sedan was placed on the ground, waiting. Lu Qingji watched the scene before him and then said, "It seems he is the General Chu the common people speak of." Xiao Chun said his kunwu sword seemed very agitated. It only has such a violent reaction when it senses dense, demonic energy. I turned my head to Lu Qingji and asked, "Senior brother, what does that mean?" Lu Qingji said, "This general has fallen to demonic cultivation." The general came to the front of the large bridal sedan. He gently pulled back the curtain and helped the bride out. Then, he lifted the bride into his arms. The bride seemed extremely frail. The great general looked dotingly at the bride. Unexpectedly, beneath the red bridal veil was a pile of bones. We all stared at this, dumbfounded. Peiyu said, "This demonized person's tastes are really something else." The great general, holding the skeleton bride, turned and walked step by step into the palace. Xiao Chun said, "Junior Sister Yuan went in too. Should we follow?" I said, "The picture book says that to resurrect the princess, the general used a trap of 10,000 people." I shouted, "Oh no, Yuan Moli is in mortal danger." Hearing this, Xiao Chun immediately rushed out, shouting for Junior Sister Yuan. He was about to go rescue her. Lu Qingji took my hand, turned his head to me, and said, "Let's follow them too." My face turned as red as a big apple. Then I shyly said, okay, Chengji, and I looked up at the mist in the sky. I wondered where the common people who had just entered and Xiao Chun had all disappeared too. Suddenly, a fierce gust of wind blew up before I had time to react. I shielded my eyes with my hand, wondering what was going on with this gust of wind. The fierce wind suddenly swept up me and Lu Qingji, forcefully separating the two of us. Our tightly clasped hands were forcefully torn apart. Lu Qingji was swept into midair by this black storm. I was also held tightly by the black wind, unable to move forward even half a step. I shouted, "Let me go! Qingji is in danger. I have to save him." At this moment, the system notified me that I had triggered the hidden storyline, the past of Huajian Kingdom. The host will travel back 300 years. As Princess Wensheng, you will experience her past. Then, an old woman pulled back the bed curtains and called out to me, "Your Highness." She told me it was time to get up for breakfast. I yawned and asked her what time it was. I wonder how I could say these words so naturally. Moreover, my body and words didn't seem to be under my own control. I remembered being separated from Chengji by the wind in the palace, and then inexplicably becoming Princess Wensheng. The old woman told me it was now the hour of Mao and time to get up and eat. I then told the old woman, Xionyang, that I wanted to leave the palace. The old woman said in shock, "Absolutely not. An enemy kingdom is invading, and the people are in a state of panic." She stroked Princess Wensheng's shoulder, saying, "If the emperor finds out you've left the palace, he will be furious." The princess said aggrievedly that she wouldn't leave the palace then. I thought to myself that according to the plot, the princess would definitely find a way to leave the palace. Sure enough, the princess changed into yellow clothes and hurried out onto the street. She wore a yellow ornament on her head and then turned, searching for something. She hurried toward the man, calling out, "Ajia." Ajia turned to look at the princess, overjoyed. The princess skipped towards Ajia and threw herself at him, saying, "I came out of the palace to play with you." I thought to myself, is this General Chu Jie? Why does he look exactly like Qingji? Chu Jie took the princess's hand and said, "You snuck out of the palace. Why didn't you bring any guards? It's so dangerous for a young lady to be out here alone." I happily said to him, "Your senior brother Lu, right? Did you also travel into the Huajian kingdom of 300 years ago, just like me?" I was so happy that I could speak freely. Chu Jie looked completely baffled, clearly having no idea who senior brother Lu was. He explained, "I'm Zhang Xixi. I'm your junior sister." I took his hands and thought, since Chengji is here, why do I still need to follow the Huajian Kingdom's plot? Chu Jie smiled and said, "Has the princess been reading some new picture book? Do you want to play a role-playing game with me now?" I disappointedly let go of his hands, wondering if I had guessed wrong. Chu Jie patted the princess's head, comforting her, "Don't be unhappy. If you like, I'll play along with you." I thought I'd better just follow the original plot. I said to Chu Jie, "Yesterday, Father Emperor said I've reached the age for marriage." Hearing this, Chu Jie froze and just said, "Oh." I thought, what a strange reaction. The princess continued, "Those potential prince consorts are all talented and handsome, the absolute cream of the crop." The princess grabbed Chu Jie, calling him Ajia. She pressed him, "Don't you want to marry me?" Chu Jie turned to look at the princess and said that he was actually leaving for a military expedition in a few days. The princess was completely stunned, standing foolishly on the spot. She said, "Going on an expedition is such a big deal. Why are you only telling me now?" The princess said angrily, "Father Emperor must have forced you into the army. I'm going to find him right now and make him cancel the decree." Chu Jie grabbed her and pulled her into his arms. He explained that no one forced him, he volunteered. The princess was so angry, she trembled all over. The battlefield is treacherous. Who knows when he'll be able to return? Chu Jie leaned on the princess's shoulder and said to her that he wanted to marry her more than anyone. "Princess, you are the princess of a nation of noble birth. I must marry you honorably with a grand wedding procession. However, I am just a thief in the eyes of the people. I want to join the army and make a name for myself to stand by your side with a better status." The princess told him, "You rob the rich to help the poor. You're different from the others. When I was being bullied by ruffians, it was you. That who saved me." Chu Jie wiped away the princess's tears and said, "If your highness marries a thief, you will be criticized in the future. I don't want you to suffer slander because of this." Chu Jie vowed that when he returned with merit, he wouldn't want glory or riches, only the princess. Then, Chu Jie lifted the princess and kissed her. He told the princess that when he returned, they would be together forever. The princess looked at him and said, "I promise." I thought to myself, I can't be wrong. This person in front of me must be Lu Qingji, because I remember the picture book said Chu Jie's personality was modest and reserved, but the words and actions of the person before me are clearly Qingji, without a doubt. 3 days later, below the city gate, Chu Jie and his soldiers were assembled and ready to depart. The princess stood atop the city wall, looking affectionately at Chu Jie, and said to him, "I'll wait for you to come back." Chu Jie turned to look at Her Highness the princess and said to her, "Wait for me to come back and marry you." Chu Jie fought bravely on the battlefield, slaying enemies. The battle was a stalemate, with continuous casualties on both sides. Although the intelligence sent back to the palace from the front lines was never optimistic, the princess firmly believed that the young man who kept his promises would return in glory to marry her. But in the 3rd year of Chu Jie's expedition, an unprecedented plague broke out in the Huajian kingdom. The entire kingdom was littered with corpses, and the people lived in misery. But among the common folk of the Huajian kingdom, a saying began to circulate. The princess's blood and the princess's flesh cure all ills and grant long life. The emperor asked the grand preceptor, "The plague has long been out of control. If this continues, the Huajian kingdom will be in peril." The grand preceptor said, "At this point, there is only one way to solve this." The emperor anxiously asked him what other way there was. The grand preceptor, incapable of saying anything good, said that for now, the only way was to kill the princess to save Huajian. The grand preceptor explained that the princess was a descendant of the Sanus' foreign tribe, and that the flesh and blood of Sanus' descendant could cure all diseases. Hearing this, the emperor said furiously, "That is simply absurd. My daughter is not an object to be sacrificed." The grand preceptor said, "With things as they are, it's no longer up to you to decide." Then, the grand preceptor pulled a dagger from his robes and viciously stabbed at the emperor. The emperor urgently dodged the fatal blow. He shouted, "What are you doing? Guards, protect me." But everyone around acted as if they hadn't heard, turning a deaf ear. In the end, the emperor was stabbed heavily in the chest with a sword and collapsed. The grand preceptor looked at the fallen emperor, happily stroking his beard, extremely pleased. Then, the grand preceptor took off his white mask, revealing his true face. It turned out to be an old man who looked to be in his 50s or 60s. My face was covered in sweat, and my eyes were still closed. Suddenly, I snapped my eyes open and sat bolt upright. I thought, so the emperor was killed by the grand preceptor. This was all the grand preceptor's conspiracy. Then I got up and threw off the small quilt covering me. I thought, I have to find a way to save the princess. But I found that my body seemed to be bound, unable to move. Was it because I wanted to save the princess and interfered with the plot? The grand preceptor, disguised as the emperor, walked towards my chambers. He cried out, "My ill-fated daughter." He told me a battle report had come from the front lines. Chu Jie had died in battle, his body never to be found. With tears in her eyes, the princess said, "Jie can't be dead. He said he would come back to marry me." The grand preceptor hypocritically pulled the princess into his arms to comfort her. He said he knew she and Chu Jie were in love, but the dead cannot be brought back to life. He said, Huajian kingdom is being invaded by an enemy from without, while within, the people suffer from a plague and live in misery. I have truly failed as an emperor. The princess looked sadly at the grand preceptor and said, "Jie is dead. I don't want to live anymore. I am willing to sacrifice my life to save the people of Huajian kingdom." The grand preceptor took the princess's hands and asked, "Are you truly sure about this?" The princess said, "I hope Father Emperor will grant my wish." The grand preceptor shed crocodile tears and said, "I will lead the people of Huajian kingdom in thanking you properly." The princess sadly shed tears again, reluctant to part with her father forever. The grand preceptor then ordered, "Proclaim to the people that tomorrow at the hour of Wu, at the city gate, the princess will offer her flesh and blood to save the people of Huajian from their suffering." The next day, atop the city gate, the princess was dressed gracefully and magnificently, looking exceptionally beautiful. A bright red dress accentuated her beautiful face. From outside the city walls came the familiar and ignorant voices. "The princess's blood and the princess's flesh cure all ills and grant long life." The princess stood on the city wall, looking at the stirring crowd below. The people shouted, "If everyone takes her flesh and eats it, Huajian can be preserved forever." The The princess said, I am Wensheng, the princess of Huajian Kingdom. For 16 years, I have lived a smooth life thanks to the people's support. Now that Huajian Kingdom is in crisis, I cannot cling to life and remain indifferent. Then she took out a dagger, saying she was willing to sacrifice herself for the country, to repay the kindness of the people with her own flesh and blood. The people below the city wall were overjoyed, thinking they could finally be saved. The people happily shouted, "Wonderful! Wonderful!" Blood-red butterflies flew to the top of the city wall. The princess plunged a dagger deep in her own chest. She was not in pain, but smiled and said, Agia, I can finally come and be with you. I let out a long breath, thinking Wensheng is dead. Can I go back now? The princess's body fell heavily from the city wall. The crowd below reached out with countless merciless demonic claws. The people of Huajian Kingdom scrambled to pounce on the princess's corpse. They shouted that they didn't want to die as they prepared to devour her body. A man hiding in a corner said he got a piece and mumbled happily that his plague would be cured soon. Unexpectedly, at this very moment, Chu Jie returned in triumph with his troops. He saw the furtive, scrambling crowd and asked what they were doing. A commoner said, General Chu, you've been on expedition for 3 years. You probably don't know that a plague has broken out in Huajian Kingdom. He held up a piece of bloody flesh in his hands and said to Chu Jie, this is the princess's flesh. It can cure the plague. Hearing this, General Chu was stunned. He told the man to say again whose flesh it was. The man said, it's the princess's flesh and blood. It can cure all diseases. The princess cared for the common people and did this voluntarily. Hearing this, General Chu was enraged. Unable to control his emotions any longer, he drew his sword and cut down the beast of a man. The surrounding crowd saw this and said in terror, General Chu is killing people. The mob scattered in all directions, afraid of losing their lives there. The princess's corpse lay on the ground. Chu Jie couldn't believe his eyes. Beneath the princess's red dress, only a pile of white bones remained. Unable to control his emotions, Chu Jie threw his sword to the ground. He dropped to his knees with a thud, looking at the princess before him with heart-wrenching grief. He roared at the sky, his eyes bloodshot. The people around said, this is bad. General Chu seems to have fallen to demonic cultivation. Chu Jie picked up the princess and said he had fought on the battlefield, surviving against all odds, all just to come back and marry her. The soldiers lined up in a row. Chu Jie's enraged eyes were blood-red. He viciously shouted, kill them, leave no one alive. The soldiers raised their swords and angrily charged forward to slaughter. Chu Jie had clearly been consumed by rage. The people shouted that he had gone mad and turned to flee for their lives out of the city. Chu Jie said sorrowfully, the ones I protected were these deranged people who murdered the princess. A man knelt before General Chu, begging him not to kill him. I floated unsteadily out of the princess's body. I now understood the root cause of the Huajian Kingdom's destruction. At this point, Chu Jie had completely lost his mind, recklessly killing one person after another. Watching everything before me, I wondered if Chengji would also become this frenzied if he fell to demonic cultivation in the future. I floated to the top of the city wall. It seemed someone was calling me, Junior Sister Zhang. The voice sounded like Chengji's. My head suddenly throbbed with pain. Chengji was shouting for me to wake up. My head hurt more and more, and I felt my body falling heavily into a bottomless abyss. It turned out I was lying unconscious in Lu Chengji's arms. He had been trying to wake me up. The mysterious dark shadow appeared behind Chengji again. It said I was now trapped in a nightmare, seeing only images of Lu Chengji killing people after falling to demonic cultivation. Lu Chengji turned to the dark shadow and said, stop spouting nonsense. As long as I stay by Master's side, it's impossible for me to fall to demonic cultivation. I still hadn't woken up, remaining in Chengji's arms with a pained expression, my face covered in sweat. Lu Chengji anxiously called out, Master, trying to wake me, but I remained unconscious and in pain. Lu Chengji thought to himself, if Master wakes up and sees me entangled with this monster, she will definitely sever ties with me. Then he drew his long sword, furious. He shouted at the monster, get lost, and swung wildly at the shadow. The dark shadow said to him, we'll meet again, and then gradually vanished into thin air. Then I slowly opened my eyes. Lu Chengji looked at me worriedly and said, you're finally awake. Lu Chengji explained that as soon as we entered the palace, we were attacked by a dream-devouring nightmare. The dream-devouring nightmare has now been slain, he said, asking how I felt. I thought to myself, I'm finally back. I smiled and told him I was fine. I said, but senior brother, why do you look so pale? Lu Qingji wondered if I had discovered something. I touched his ear and said, let me see. Well, this is a first. Lu Qingji's face turned bright red with shyness, as if he had a fever. I wondered what was going on, since he clearly didn't have a fever. I took Qingji's hands and said, I thought you looked unwell just now. Are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere? I'll transfer some spiritual energy to you. Lu Qingji said happily to me, was Junior's sister worried about me just now? I told him, of course I was worried about you. You're the disciple I raised. Lu Qingji suddenly became very dejected and then asked me, do you think all demons are unforgivably evil? I asked him, why would you suddenly ask that? He said, that dream-devouring nightmare just now. It absorbed spiritual energy, but it doesn't seem to have done anything unforgivably evil. I lowered my head in thought. Qingji actually asked this question. I have to answer it well and instill in him a correct worldview. I explained that there is no absolute good or bad in the world, nor is there an eternal opposition of black and white. Humans cultivate by absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, so their temperaments are relatively gentle and kind. But there are still good people and bad people. Therefore, what's important isn't the distinction between immortal and demon, but whether one holds kindness in their heart. Hearing these words, Lu Qingji's face turned red with shyness, but he also seemed to find comfort in them. He lifted my chin with his fingers, something I never, ever expected. Then he held my face with both hands and kissed me. I was so shy my eyes turned red. I thought, how could Qingji do this? Blushing, I forcefully pushed Lu Qingji away. I couldn't believe he acted like such a hooligan towards me. He immediately and obediently said that he had been presumptuous. If you want to hit or scold me, I won't fight back at all. I crossed my arms, angrily thinking that while his attitude of admitting fault was good, he would always dare to do it again. Lu Qingji is always like this. I turned away angrily and said, let's just forget it this time. We should go find Xiao Chun and the others. We came to an inconspicuous corner of the main hall and fumbled along the wall for a while. After knocking on 3 spots on the wall, the solid wall actually cracked open slightly down the middle, revealing a passage. I never thought such a secret passage would be hidden beneath the palace. Walking down the narrow passage, Lu Qingji discovered a secret chamber. I immediately said, I'll help you. The dim room was empty except for a crystal coffin. Inside the coffin lay a skeleton and Yuan Moly. The man in the red groom's attire held an oil lamp. Its large flame flickered from time to time, emitting a faint light. He took off his mask and said, "You've finally come." His face, covered in talismans, looked somewhat sinister in the flickering lamplight. As his voice fell, a sword came attacking me. A sharp, fluorescent light stabbed towards me with astonishing speed. Lu Qingji drew his sword in time to block in front of me. The two swords clashed with a humming sound. The Grand Preceptor cultivates by absorbing resentment and pain. He slaughtered the people of an entire nation, absorbing an immeasurable amount of resentment. Based on Lu Qingji's performance at the Immortal Alliance Conference, he shouldn't be a match for him. Yet now, Lu Qingji held a steady advantage. While I was pondering, the blade of Lu Qingji's sword was already at the masked man's neck. I quickly spoke up to stop him, telling Lu Qingji not to hurt him. I softly uttered 2 words, Chu Jie. All these years, you've been luring living people into the array to resurrect the princess. But the 10,000 Souls Resurrection Array requires the deceased to have had strong resentment before death to work. The man's expression instantly turned ugly, and he stared deathly at me. The princess had no resentment when she died. She sacrificed herself voluntarily. He roared, "You're lying. How could Her Highness have been willing?" The Emperor, the ministers, the common people Euro, they all forced the princess. They all deserved to die. I said the people and the Emperor were all innocent. The Grand Preceptor was the real murderer, disguised as the Emperor. He deceived the princess into offering her flesh and blood. Chu Jie, you've avenged the wrong people. The ones you killed were all innocent people the princess protected with her life. If I'm not mistaken, the Grand Preceptor also told you about the 10,000 Souls Resurrection Array, didn't he? He planned all of this and completely deceived you. The man touched the skeleton's face, trembling as he said he didn't believe it, that I must be lying to him. I said, "You keep the princess's bones by your side, preventing her from entering reincarnation. She definitely wouldn't want to see you like this." Seeing the man on the ground in unbearable pain, I ultimately felt a stir of compassion. Lu Qingji looked at me, his pupils trembling slightly. I bit my fingertip and a drop of blood gathered there. With my fingertip facing up, I then placed that drop of blood on the skeleton's skull. Soon, a fine, shimmering light condensed around the skeleton. Blue specks of light gathered from all around. Above the white skeleton, they converged into a human figure. Soulmancy can gather scattered souls of the dead and manifest them before the living. The price is that the user consumes a vast amount of spiritual power and energy, causing great harm to their body. A clear and pleasant girl's voice rang out, as shy and timid as it was back then. Time had aged, but she had not grown up. She remained at the flower-like age of 16. Chu Jie was stunned. He slowly looked up in disbelief. After seeing the young girl before him clearly, his pupils suddenly constricted. "And I'm so happy to see you again." The girl smiled, her eyes bright and teeth pearly, yet tears welled in them. Chu Jie suddenly realized something. He hastily lowered his head, covering his face with his hands. Panicked, he said, "I'm so ugly now." The princess gently touched Chu Jie's cheek with her hand and said, "How is Ajia ugly? You're clearly as handsome as you were before." She said, "The destruction of the Huajian kingdom. I know it wasn't your intention. If there is a next life, I hope we can just be an ordinary husband and wife. If we are reborn, please find me a little sooner, Ajia." "Ajia, I'm about to disappear. Can you hold me?" Chu Jie scrambled over and hugged her. Crying, he shouted, "Your Highness, don't go. Don't leave me." The girl shed a tear and whispered in his ear, "Goodbye, my husband." Chu Jie tried to hug her again, but his hands passed through the girl's body, embracing only air. A red and an orange carved coral bead fell to the ground. They made a crisp sound. I asked in confusion, "How did Chu Jie disappear too?" Lu Qingji said, "Chu Jie had no more attachments to this world, so he followed the princess." I thought to myself, they truly were a pair of lovers. Suddenly, I felt a wave of dizziness and slowly collapsed. I had sealed my cultivation before entering the adverse realm, and now I was a bit exhausted. Lu Qingji pinched my wrist and examined it carefully. After learning that I had overexhausted my spiritual power, his tone grew much colder. "For two unrelated people, you've basically used up all your spiritual power. Junior sister, you truly have the heart of a bodhisattva. Have you considered yourself at all?" I clasped his hands with both of mine, looked gently at the person before me, and cautiously asked if he was angry. He looked at me expressionlessly, making my heart feel a little unnerved. I saw him forcefully fling my hands away. I watched his action in surprise. He crouched down and picked up the two sparkling beads from the ground. Watching him from behind, I thought he's definitely angry. I said to him, "Don't be angry. Aren't you still here with me? I'll be fine." He grabbed my hand and then pulled forcefully. I felt a sense of weightlessness and cried out as I fell towards him. He caught me by the waist and then suddenly kissed my lips. My eyes widened as I stared at him, mumbling for him to let go. Then I placed both hands on his chest, trying to push him away. But he immediately caught both of my hands, restraining me, and deepened the kiss with more force. As he kissed me passionately, he transferred some spiritual power to me through his mouth. He said angrily, "If you act recklessly again without regard for your own body, I'll punish you this way from now on." He clearly wanted to show concern, but his words were full of harshness. Although his method was wrong, I couldn't be too hard on him. Yuan Moli woke up and asked what we were doing. She thought to herself, "They're so close, and their faces are so red." I quickly moved closer to her and said, "Junior sister, since you're awake, let's leave this place. We can talk about everything else back at the inn." Outside, the cold wind still blew, and snowflakes suddenly began to fall. We returned to the inn and saw Peiyu eating. He shouted to us, waving us over to him. Xiao Chan said the palace was very strange. They fainted not long after going in. He asked why we came back so late and what had happened. I said that everything here was related to General Chu from the storybooks. To resurrect the princess, he wanted to sacrifice the lives of 10,000 people. But the instigator wasn't General Chu. It was the Grand Preceptor of the Huajian Kingdom. For some reason, Lu Qingji got angry again. He said coldly, "Junior brother, hurry up and eat. It won't be good if the food gets cold." Then he placed a piece of fish into my mouth, telling me to try it. He said with a grin that he had already removed the bones. I took the fish and started chewing. Then I said with certainty, "It's actually quite delicious." Yuan Moli secretly thought, "That bitch. How dare she steal my man? Encouraged, Lu Qingji immediately filled my bowl to the brim. I quickly told him not to give me any more food and to eat it himself. Yuan Moli picked up a cup of tea and said she hadn't thanked me for saving her life yet. This cup of tea was a small token of her appreciation, and she hoped I wouldn't mind. I took the cup and was about to drink, thinking, this female lead is quite thoughtful, isn't she? But Lu Qingji snatched the cup away and poured the tea onto the ground. He said disdainfully that her teacup wasn't clean. The tea steamed as it hit the ground. Lu Qingji said, this tea isn't clean, and he told me to drink his water. Like a green tea, he said he was sure Miss Yuan wouldn't mind. Yuan Moli's face darkened. She thought, how am I inferior to her? In terms of figure and looks, I'm no less outstanding than her. Why does Lu Qingji dote on her like this? She stood up, said she was full, and went upstairs to rest first. Lu Qingji watched Yuan Moli's departing figure with a serious, thoughtful expression. Because the beds in the inn rooms were rather small, everyone had their own room. The moment Lu Qingji closed his door, he felt something was amiss in his room. A subtle fragrance reached his nose. Lu Qingji's long eyelashes drooped, casting a small shadow beneath his eyes. He glanced towards the bed out of the corner of his eye, thinking, so a mouse has entered the room. The fragrance grew stronger, tempting one to commit a crime. He stared at the closed bed curtains, slowly walked to the bedside, and lifted the bulging quilt, revealing the alluring person inside. Her dark, beautiful hair barely covered her body, which was clad only in an inner tunic. Her pair of misty eyes were captivating, her gaze flowing. Desire and longing were written plainly in them. Yuan Moli's soft, boneless hands wrapped around Lu Qingji's waist, feeling his firm muscles. With tears in her eyes, she said, do you understand my feelings? She now felt a burning heat all over her body. Where she touched Lu Qingji, a tingling pleasure spread. Her fair hand moved down his abdomen inch by inch, but was caught by Lu Qingji. She looked up in confusion, meeting Lu Qingji's amber eyes. He was clearly smiling, but the mockery and disgust in his eyes were unconcealable. With a grim face, he spoke, having fun, Miss Yuan? Yuan Moli thought in surprise. I clearly used Qinggu incense in the room. Any man who smells it should be consumed by lust, unable to stop himself. Lu Qingji lifted Yuan Moli's chin and said, the goose sorcery of the witch tribe, vile and base, they have never been welcomed by the world. Tell me, if I were to expose your identity as a member of the witch tribe, how do you think others would see you? Yuan Moli's muddled consciousness cleared considerably. Trembling, she begged Lu Qingji not to tell anyone. The man's voice was light, like a life-reaping ghost from hell. Today, in Junior Sister Zhang's teacup, I caught a fuchsia vine. If you used these methods on anyone else, I wouldn't have meddled. But you just had to touch the one person you shouldn't have. The sword plunged into her heart, twisted slowly, without a shred of mercy. Yuan Moli's eyes filled with tears. The pain was so intense, she couldn't straighten her back. With a trembling hand, she reached out and grabbed the sleeve of the hand holding the sword. The man pulled the sword out, took out a handkerchief, and methodically wiped the blood from it. He said coldly, next time, it will be your life. Without another glance at the bleeding woman on the bed, Lu Qingji turned and walked out the door. Yuan Moli thought, it wasn't like this in my past life. My room was next to Lu Qingji's. He left his room, concealed his entire aura, and entered my room. My biological clock is very punctual, and I was already asleep. Sensing some movement, I groggily opened my eyes. I rubbed my eyes and asked dazedly, why are you here? He tiptoed onto the bed and tucked the corners of my quilt. Lu Qingji buried his head in my hair and nuzzled me. I said, are you a puppy? This is a bad habit. He pushed his tongue against his cheek, a somewhat lazy grin on his face. I pushed him but couldn't move him. He said, you heard wrong. Lu Qingji said pitifully that he was no longer clean. He had been touched by a woman. So holding me like this makes him clean, is that it? But considering my own disciple's fragile glass heart, I patiently asked, where did she touch you? He ended up crying that she had touched his outer robe. I, who was already grumpy from being woken up, was now even more annoyed. I threw Lu Qingji, quilt, and all, off the bed and told him to either sleep on the floor or go back to his own room. A certain someone who was kicked off the bed obediently laid out his bedding and sweetly said, good night, Junior Sister. The room was pitch black. Lu Qingji lay on the bed with his eyes closed. Suddenly, he felt the scent of icy orchids wash over him, lingering at the tip of his nose. He snapped his eyes open. I was lying next to him. I wasn't wearing my usual solemn white robes, but a light pink inner tunic. Lu Qingji stared at the person beside him, his breathing gradually becoming heavy, his throat a little dry. I extended my slender, pale fingertips and ambiguously toyed with his sash. Looking at him teasingly, I said, "Tonight, your master will sleep with you." After speaking, I got up and straddled him, wrapping my slender white arms around his neck, our breaths mingling. Lu Qingji's fingers clenched tightly, his knuckles turning white. "Master, you're so close. If others find out, it would be improper." My clothes were half off, the red doo-doo inside faintly visible. I said, "Heaven knows and earth knows. How would anyone else know? Haven't you been madly in love with me for a long time? I'm in your arms right now. Why are you still so reserved? Besides, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. If you miss it, it's gone forever." I feigned getting up, but was pulled back by a pair of hands. To die under a peony is a romantic fate, even for a ghost. The world spun, and I found myself sitting on Lu Qingji's lap, my waist held fast, my chin resting in the crook of his neck. His arms held me tightly, as if trying to carve me into his body. Lu Qingji gritted his teeth and said in my ear, "Master was the one who seduced her disciple first." Under the moonlight, I smiled and went to kiss his lips. It didn't even last 2 seconds. Lu Qingji's mind was in chaos. He turned the tables, becoming more proactive and tangling me in a deep kiss. He kept his eyes closed, kissing me relentlessly, murmuring that he liked me so much. Then he got up, undid his own clothes, and with an amorous expression, watched me sink. His body pressed down. He called my name passionately. "The night is short. We should be doing something." Then he kissed my forehead, wanted to go further with me. In the silent, dark night, there was movement under the covers. Lu Qingji held me, calling my name passionately over and over. Blushing, I tremblingly called out his name. Lu Qingji moved up and down on top of me. I felt like I was drifting in the ocean. Suddenly, he fiercely intertwined his fingers with mine, gripping my small hand tightly. "Master is too sweet. I really want to sink into this forever." When Lu Qingji woke up, his face was flushed and the sky was just beginning to lighten. It really was a dream. The aphrodisiac incense the woman used still had some effect on him to make him have such a dream. At that time, I was sound asleep in my bed. He looked at the sleeping me and smiled wistfully. Then he came to the bedside and caressed my cheek, thinking, "Master, what are you doing to your disciple?" He stood up, still wanting more, and lightly kissed the face of the me who was sleeping soundly in bed. A scream came from outside the room, startling me awake. Lu Qingji said it seemed something had happened outside. He was just about to wake me up to go see what was going on. Then he brought my clothes, draped them over me, and told me to get dressed quickly. Hearing the scream, everyone hastily threw on their outer robes and ran towards the sound. I looked at the crowd gathered in front of the door, walked over rubbing my eyes, and asked about the situation. Someone said that Peiyu had actually forced himself on Miss Yuan. My eyes widened in utter disbelief. Yuan Moli covered her naked body with a quilt, looked at the equally naked Peiyu on the bed, and screamed. She tried hard to recall last night's events. She had wanted to use a technique on Lu Qingji. She had lost consciousness. She vaguely remembered a man's hot body and heavy breathing. Yuan Moli cried to everyone, asking them to seek justice for her. At this point, she had to play the victim. I thought, senior brother Pei doesn't seem like the kind of person to do something like this. Others said, you can know a person's face, but not their heart. A burst of laughter came from outside the door, wanton and lazy. Lu Qingji walked in, the corners of his lips holding a spring breeze-like smile. He said, it might have been Miss Yuan who forced herself on Peiyu. Everyone found it hard to believe such a shocking statement. Xiaoqing came out, blushing, and said everyone had misunderstood. The truth wasn't what they thought. Last night, he passed by senior brother Lu's room and heard her say from inside, "It feels so good." Her voice didn't sound unwilling. Yuan Moli's face was pale. She looked at the dried bloodstain on the bedding, the hatred in her eyes growing. Everyone whispered, this is Lu Qingji's room. Why are Yuan Moli and Peiyu here? Lu Qingji said, I slept in her room last night. As for why they are in my room, perhaps they were looking for some excitement. Isn't that right, Miss Yuan? On the bed, upon hearing this, Yuan Moli's eyes welled with tears. Her petal-like lips were bitten, leaving marks. The fingers clutching the corner of her clothes were white. Truly a sight to evoke pity. As expected of the female lead, who wouldn't feel heartache seeing such a sight? Lu Qingji said faintly, since there's nothing wrong, let's disperse. He seemed to have no sympathy for the girl on the bed. The female lead now belongs to someone else. Our Qingji is a pure and upright boy. I really wanted to shake Lu Qingji and tell him, forget it. It's fine to give up on this female lead. As I turned, I saw Yuan Moli looking at me with hatred in her eyes. Although it was only for a moment, I still caught it. Yuan Moli stared viciously at our departing backs, thinking, I will definitely make them pay. Everyone searched for a whole day, but couldn't find the exit of the Netherworld Ancient Realm. Many people were too tired to walk anymore. Suddenly, Xiao Chun stopped and pointed into the distance for everyone to look. Following his finger, we saw that there really seemed to be someone in the distant pavilion. I looked up at Lu Qingji and said, let's go take a look together. He turned to look at me and agreed. Then, I led the group to the old man's side. The white-bearded old man was playing Go by himself. He said, you want to know where the exit of the Netherworld Ancient Realm is that right? I asked in pleasant surprise if he knew where the exit was. The old man said, whoever plays a game of chess with this old man, if you win, I'll tell you the exit. If you lose, you'll have to stay here with me for the rest of your life. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. It was obvious that none of them knew how to play chess. Xiao Chun stepped forward and said he would like to try. The old man glanced at him disdainfully and said he wasn't needed. Then he pointed his finger at Lu Qingji and said, it's him. My jaw dropped in shock. The old man said to let Lu Qingji play a game with him. It had been a long time since he'd met someone so interesting. Lu Qingji took the black stones, the old man. That took the white stones. The old man stroked his beard, bowing his head in thought. The two sat down and began the match. Everyone watched the game from the side. Suddenly, a voice asked, you've fallen in love with your master, haven't you? The fingers of Lu Qingji, holding a black stone, twitched slightly. He looked at me and saw my expression was normal as I was focused on the game. Only then did he realize that the old man was talking to him using telepathy. You young man, you have a wicked heart. You can fool your master, but you can't fool me. As he spoke, the old man placed a white stone. He knew perfectly well that the old man was deliberately saying these things to disturb his mind, but he still couldn't help but think about his master, getting uncontrollably distracted. Falling in love with someone who doesn't belong to this world is a very serious matter. Not to mention, you still have half-demon blood in your veins. Lu Qingji asked, doesn't belong to this world? What do you mean? But the old man said, your obsession is too deep. It has become a stumbling block on your path of cultivation. Sooner or later, it will drag you into the abyss. Your potential is far greater than this. You should let her go. In the near future, you will become an existence that can replace me. But Lu Qingji said nonchalantly, no need. He said, the only one I care about in this world is my master. If I can't be with her, then what's the point of reaching the pinnacle of cultivation? If I can't be with her, it will be 1,000, 10,000 times more painful than being in hell. What is there to be afraid of? For him, any place with his master is paradise. He had enough patience for his master. He believed that one day his master would understand. His long, jade-like fingers picked up another black stone from the porcelain jar and gently placed it in an inconspicuous position. A move made cannot be taken back. Senior, you have lost. The old man looked at the board, his face turning pale then green. He stared at Lu Qingji with his deep brown eyes. If you wish to break this situation in the future, it will surely be like this game, with black and white reversed. The old man opened his hand, and a strong wind blew all around. A void door appeared out of thin air on the bridge, growing larger as the old man cast a spell. Everyone looked at the door and danced with joy. We can finally get out. I was just about to turn back and thank the old man, but he was no longer by the chessboard, and on the stone table, a green carved coral bead lay quietly. The curtains fluttered gently in the wind, carrying the calm before storm. Main Quest 5. Dig out Lu Qingji's heart's blood to heal Xiao Chun, and let Xiao Chun know about your forbidden love for him. System, tell me honestly, when did you get a mental illness? You want me to dig out my beloved disciple's heart's blood to cure Xiao Chun? Xiao Chun is standing right there perfectly fine for FCK's sake. Just then, I saw Xiao Chun being held in the air by a person in a white cloak. And a white mask. Everyone around, except for me and Lu Qingji, had collapsed to the ground in pain. Xiao Chen's feet were forced off the ground. His neck was tightly gripped, his face an abnormal red. He looked to be in great pain. I shouted for the person in white to let Xiao Chun go immediately. But in my mind, I was thinking this person's mask is identical to the Grand Preceptor of the Huajian Kingdom. The person in white was like a ghost, his body hidden in the cloak. He laughed and said if I gave him the 3 beads, he would let Xiao Chun go. I instantly understood what the person in white was referring to. I tried to negotiate with him. You let him go first, and I'll give you the beads. Xiao Chun felt it was hard to breathe, as if his neck was about to be crushed. The person in white said faintly, "You are not yet qualified to bargain with me." The next second, I flew forward, my sword unsheathed, and shouted, "How will we know if we don't try?" The person in white unhurriedly retreated. With one hand, he struck my oncoming sword. The body of the sword shattered and scattered. Before I could even react, the person in white turned sideways and struck his palm toward my chest. I was startled and reacted quickly, striking back. I thrust out a palm to meet his. I felt a surge of blood in my chest. My internal organs felt like they were being torn apart. Blood seeped from between my teeth. I lost consciousness and fell from the sky. Lu Qingji's pupils constricted. He hurriedly caught the falling person, the heartache in his eyes about to overflow. The remaining people heard Lu Qingji shout "Master," and were shocked. Could it be that junior sister Zhang is venerable Luo Chu in disguise? Lu Qingji held me, gently wiping the blood from the corner of my mouth. His knuckles were white, his face grim, and a storm raged in his amber eyes. He gently picked me up and placed me aside. When he looked up again, the aura around him was terrifying. He looked at the person in white and said threateningly, "He who harms my master shall die." I had my eyes closed, my brows tightly furrowed, as if I had encountered something difficult in a dream. When I woke up, it was already the morning of the third day. The little cat happily came over and said to me, "You're finally awake, Solbi. I thought I'd never see you again." The little cat clung to my arm, crying its eyes and nose out. I pushed it away and asked, "How did I get back? Where are Lu Qingji and the others?" It said, "You were unconscious at the time. You have no idea. The great villain was seriously injured to save you. Several of his meridians were broken, covered in blood. He carried you and rushed to Changshan Peak, begging Mu Qinghua to treat you." As soon as I heard Lu Qingji was seriously injured, my heart sank. The orange cat continued, "He woke up this morning. His recovery ability is very fast, and he's mostly fine now." I breathed a sigh of relief and said, "It's good that he's okay." But I felt like I had forgotten something. The systems prompt popped up again. It turned out the mission was still not done. The orange cat slapped its head and said, "Xiao Chun was also injured. I hear his condition isn't very optimistic." The moment I heard that, I threw on a coat and rushed out. If I delayed this mission any longer, I would be struck dead by heavenly lightning. As I left, I ran into Lu Qingji carrying a bowl of medicine. He looked at me with pleasant surprise and said he had brewed medicine for me. I remembered the mission and hesitated for a moment. Gritting my teeth, I grabbed Lu Qingji's hand and said, "Come with your master." Soon, we arrived at Changxing Peak. The air here was fresh and the scenery was beautiful. When I arrived, pulling Lu Qingji along, Xiao Chan was lying unconscious on the bed, his face pale. Mu Qinghua was taking his pulse with a worried expression. He said, "Venerable Luo Chu, your disciple's spiritual root has been injured, and his life is in danger. The only way is for him to drink the heart's blood of a cultivator with a complete spiritual root. In the entire Yunshang immortal abode, besides Xiao Chun himself, the only cultivator with a complete spiritual root is Lu Qingji." Lu Qingji's expression froze. He looked at my ice-cold expression, and his heart plummeted as if thrown into a cellar of ice. A disciple said, after the venerable fell unconscious, Senior Brother Lu frantically attacked that person in white. Senior Brother Lu was beaten until he was seriously injured. His body has not yet recovered. I thought that after Lu Qingji gave his heart's blood, I would use the nectar of jade to heal him, which would alleviate his injuries. But to the disciples present, it sounded like something else entirely, compared to the life and death of their eldest senior brother, Lu Qingji. Venerable Luo Chu cared more about the new disciple, Xiao Chun. I'm afraid she secretly entered the netherworld ancient realm for Xiao Chun as well. Lu Qingji's hand trembled slightly, but the corner of his mouth twitched into a smile. "Whatever master wants, your disciple will get it for you." Mu Qinghua spoke up. "In that case, I will take Lu Qingji to the next room to draw the blood. Please hurry. We can't delay any longer." I took Lu Qingji into the inner room, closed the door, and then said to Lu Qingji, "Take off your clothes." Lu Qingji thought he had misheard and blushed shyly. I said, somewhat amused, "If you don't take off your clothes, how am I supposed to take your heart's blood? You were so shameless in the ancient realm. I didn't see you being this reserved." Lu Qingji slowly removed his clothes, piece by piece falling to the floor, revealing his lean and bare chest. My eyes went wide, and my cheeks burned. My disciple's figure is way too good. These abs, this perky butt, these collarbones, these 1.8-meter long legs. No, I slapped myself. This isn't the time to be thinking about these things. I pinched myself. I became a little more clear-headed. An exquisite short dagger appeared in my hand. I said, taking your heart's blood will be very painful. You'll have to bear with it. Lu Qingji smiled obediently. He said if it's master, then it won't hurt. My heart grew slightly warm. A strange feeling seemed to be sprouting. But if I don't dig out his heart's blood, I'll be struck dead by heavenly lightning. I leaned over his fair chest. The texture was smooth, and it felt surprisingly good to the touch. I swallowed. My fingers traced the position of his heart. He looked down at my movements, his face blushing shyly. I'm sorry, I thought. Then I hardened my heart and stabbed down. Bright red, scalding blood flowed out. The short dagger continued to sink into his chest, revealing a heart writhing in torn flesh. I looked at the bulging veins and sweat on Lu Qingji's forehead, my heart aching as I said, "Be good, my disciple. The pain will be gone soon. It'll be gone soon." Lu Qingji felt like a pervert with a dark heart. Master was clearly trying to take his heart's blood, yet he was aroused by my touch. Everywhere my fingertips went, they left a tingling numbness. Finally, he couldn't hold on any longer and slowly collapsed. I quickly supported the weakened Lu Qingji. I comforted him, saying it was over, my eyes filled with heartache. The blood stained his lips red, making him look somewhat more demonic and wild. He looked at me with tears welling in his eyes. He spoke in a low voice. All the good things were given by me. All the pain was also given by me. When will Master be able to give him love? The scenery today is very beautiful. The weather is also very good. I anxiously stood guard by Xiao Chen's side. It's already been a day, I thought. Why hasn't the male lead woken up yet? The kitty said it looks like he won't be waking up anytime soon. If I was really that worried about Lu Qingji, I should go see him. Hearing this, I vanished in a flash. The little cat told me his room wasn't far, and if anything happened here, he would immediately come find me. With a click, the door was closed by me. The little cat thought, there's no need to be in such a hurry. Qingji lay on the sickbed, a figure in pain. His strong body revealed 2 large pectoral muscles. I gently caressed Qingji's face, looking at him with worry. I felt extremely pained. I said he has always been obedient and sensible. He never needed me to worry much. He could always manage the affairs of Qingya Peak, big and small, in perfect order. Qingji nuzzled his face against my hand like a little kitten. He mumbled, "Master, Master." I gently caressed his cheek, comforting him. "Don't be afraid. Master is here." I was lost in thought. The situation was urgent before I thought, so I didn't have time to think it through. When in the netherworld ancient realm did Qingji discover my identity? And his intimate actions, were they directed at me or at Zhang Cici? If he likes Zhang Cici, does he like Zhang Cici's appearance? Or does he like the personality I showed when I was pretending to be her? I thought, if he likes me, I'll definitely have to leave the world of the book in the future. What if he likes the appearance of Venerable Luochu? I scratched my head and told myself to wake up. That can't be it. I thought, I can't figure it out anyway. I might as well hurry up and feed Qingji the agar dew. I gently lifted Qingji's body to feed him the dew water, coaxing him, "Drink this. The wounds on your body will heal quickly." But the water slowly trickled out of his mouth. He couldn't drink it at all. I thought, Qingji is too badly injured. He can't drink by himself at all. I bit my lip and thought, forget it. I'll just go all out. I picked up the agar dew, tilted my head back, and held all the dew water in my mouth. Then I leaned down, put my mouth to Qingji's, and fed him bit by bit. I thought, your master dotes on you so much. You'd better not kill me in the future. Lu Qingji made a swallowing motion, gulping down the medicine mixed with my saliva. I wiped my mouth, very happy. I thought, thankfully he drank it all. Not a single drop was wasted. As long as he rests for a few more days, his body should recover. Unexpectedly, he reached out and grabbed my hand. I thought, what's going on? How is he awake? He yanked me over, and I fell onto his body. We were face to face, able to hear each other's breathing. He closed his eyes and kissed me again. He kissed me and said, "I'm begging you, don't leave me." I thought, if I push him away now, will I hurt him again? I gently pushed him away and said to him, all right, Qingji." Then Qingji released his hand. I shyly wiped my mouth. Qingji fainted again after the kiss. He really used a lot of strength for that kiss. I thought this child must be delirious with fever. I ran out flustered, covering my face. Unexpectedly, Yuan Moli was hiding in a corner and saw everything. She thought, I never expected the cold and aloof Venerable Luochu to actually do something so improper as seducing her own disciple. Then she slowly walked out from the corner and came to Lu Qingji's bedside. Yuan Moli looked at Lu Qingji lying on the bed. She thought in the netherworld ancient realm, you two, master and disciple, slept in the same room every day. No wonder he would stab himself with a sword for her. It was all for that bitch, Luochu. Yuan Moli gently caressed Lu Qingji's chest. She thought Lu Qingji was actually willing to offer his heart's blood for Luochu. Yuan Moli sneered and said, if Luochu finds out you've fallen to the demonic path, will there still be a happy ending for you two? Yuan Moli took out a familiar-looking bone from her robes, contemplating what to do. She approached Lu Qingji step by step. It turned out to be a corpse soul bone, capable of stimulating the evil within a person's heart. As long as she dissolved her own blood into the corpse soul bone and drove it into Lu Qingji's body, once he fell to the demonic path, the master-disciple relationship would collapse on its own. It turned out this was something the masked Grand Preceptor had given to Yuan Moli, instructing her that as long as things got back on track, Lu Qingji would be hers. The Grand Preceptor said that Lu Qingji fought him to the death for Luochu without a care for his own life. You must be jealous in your heart. Hearing this, Yuan Moli hesitated a little, but these words seemed to have struck a chord with her, making her waver. The Grand Preceptor told her that Luochu had stolen the love that should have been hers. This corpse soul bone could help her get everything she wanted. Yuan Moli hesitated again and again, but in the end, she accepted the corpse soul bone, and she said to the Grand Preceptor, I agree. Yuan Moli used the corpse soul bone to inject her blood into Lu Qingji's body. Wisps of black smoke began to rise from Qingji's body. Yuan Moli used the corpse soul bone to cut Qingji's skin. Fresh blood trickled from his wound. Sizzling steam rose from Lu Qingji's entire body, as if he were a boiling pot. Yuan Moli stroked Lu Qingji's sideburns. She thought, why should Luochu get Lu Qingji's love? I stood guard by Xiao Chen's side. I thought, didn't the male lead use Qingji's heart's blood? Why hasn't he woken up yet? As soon as the thought crossed my mind, Xiao Chen slowly opened his eyes, but his breathing was still very weak. I asked him, Xiao Chen, you're finally awake. How do you feel now? Xiao Chen sat up and said he was fine, thanking me for all my trouble during this time. I said, it's good that you're okay. I actually have something I want to tell you. He said, Master, please speak your mind. I said to him, a little embarrassed, do you think I treat you well? Xiao Chen was a bit confused. He said, Master is naturally extremely good to your disciple. I said, what if I told you that taking you as my disciple, venturing into the netherworld ancient realm together, and even digging out your senior brother Lu Qingji's heart's blood to save you, was all because I'm in love with you? Xiao Chen was incredulous when he heard my words. He said, Master, what are you saying? I backed him step by step into the bed covers. He said a romance between a master and disciple is unethical. Following the script, I repeated the next lines one by one. Xiao Chen said, Master, are you joking with your disciple? Xiao Chen said he was a bit confused and wanted to be alone for a while. I said, as your master, I know this is hard for you to accept right now. Think it over carefully. I said to Xiao Chen, your current identity and title were all given to you by me. You're a sensible child. Don't let your master down. Xiao Chen was so scared he curled up in the bed covers, trembling as he said, Disciple understands. At this moment, the system reminded me that main quest 5 was complete and that I had received a reward. I thought, it's finally done. I should take advantage of the time I've left and go see Qingji. I came out panting. Qingji speechlessly left. Lu Qingji sat dazedly on the steps alone. It was a bit chilly outside. The leaves rustled as they were blown by the wind. The wind blew through his long hair. He seemed to be thinking about something. I said to him, your wound hasn't healed. How can you wear something so thin? Besides, it's not appropriate to sit on these cold steps. Hurry back to your room. Lu Qingji didn't speak, just stared at me with a dark expression. I noticed that Lu Qingji's expression was a bit strange. I asked him, what's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Lu Qingji asked me why I was so good to him. I said, once a master, a mother for life. I see you as my own child. Lu Qingji muttered to himself, once a master, a mother for life. Clearly, he was not very satisfied with my answer. He seemed to have been triggered, repeatedly slapping his own forehead. He laughed out loud with a blank expression, saying a fine mother for life. I looked at the trembling Lu Qingji. I thought, how did a perfectly fine child suddenly become so crazy? I looked at him in shock, so stunned I couldn't speak. Lu Qingji stood up and said to me, Master, you don't understand at all. I took Qingji's hand, wanting to comfort him. I said, "Qingji, what are you saying?" Lu Qingji's hand broke free from mine. This was the first time he had ever actively let go of my hand. He turned his head and said to me, "Master, please go back." His expressionless words scared me. He said he was tired and wanted a rest. I looked at Qingji's back in disbelief. I watched him silently and called out, "Qingji." I also turned my head and said to him, "Then rest well. Your master will come see you again tomorrow." I took one step and stopped. I froze with a jolt. I quietly turned my head and glanced at him, but he didn't look back at me. I was truly speechless. Then I reached out and took his hand. I said to him, "Let's go inside. Your master is worried. I still want to stay with you." Lu Qingji seemed moved when he heard my words. He shyly said, "Mm." I accompanied him back to his room and covered him with the quilt. He was happy, thinking that I must still care about him. He patted his own head, saying, "A fine mother for life." I said, "Now this is more like my good disciple." Looking at the scene before me, I finally let out a sigh of relief. I thought that momentary feeling of craziness must have been my imagination. He held my hands tightly, placing them on his chest. He looked at me dotingly, murmuring, "Master." I asked him, "What is it?" He snuggled against me, nuzzling back and forth. I said, "What is it you want?" I said, "You're such a big person. Why are you still acting like a child?" He held my hands nervously, as if he had something to say. Before he could finish, he was interrupted. Someone knocked on the door from outside, saying something terrible had happened. "Xiao Chen has fainted." I shot up to my feet. I thought, how did the male lead faint? Lu Qingji grabbed my arm and said to me, "Master, please don't go." I looked at Lu Qingji before me and began to feel conflicted. At that moment, the person outside started urging again, saying, "Hurry and go see Xiao Chun." I thought if something happens to the male lead, it will be hard to explain to the system. I patted Qingji's shoulder, comforting him like a child. "Be good, Qingji." I comforted him, saying I would come see him again tomorrow. Lu Qingji said reluctantly, "Don't." I hurriedly turned and walked outside. Lu Qingji reached out to stop me, calling my name. Because I was very worried that something might happen over there, I hurriedly slammed the door shut with a click. Lu Qingji sat on the bed like a sick little chicken, muttering that Master didn't even spare him a glance. At this moment, another voice emerged. It said to Qingji, "Your master doesn't love you at all." Qingji lifted his quilt and cursed at it. "Get out. Get out of my body right now." A black shadow enveloped him. It said, "In this world, no one understands Lu Qingji better than it does." It told Lu Qingji that as long as he didn't reject it, he could merge with it. When that time comes, the entire cultivation world will be under Lu Qingji's feet. The black shadow said to him, "You were listening outside to her confession to Xiao Chun. It must have been very painful, wasn't it?" Lu Qingji clutched his head in pain, saying, "Master is mine." Lu Qingji cried out in pain, saying, "Master can only be his." The black shadow continued to add fuel to the fire, saying, "Stop deceiving yourself. Your master has already chosen Xiao Chun and abandoned you." Lu Qingji muttered to himself, "Master valued loyalty and righteousness back then, taking me as her disciple. Why is it that after I fell in love with her, she fell for someone else?" The more Lu Qingji thought about it, the angrier he got. He slammed his fist heavily on the ground. He said, no one could take his master away from him. He was so angry that the hair on his body stood on end. He shouted, "Absolutely not." When I rushed back to Xiao Chen's room, the system asked me why I was back again. I told it that I heard Xiao Chun had fainted, so I rushed back to check. The kitty jumped onto my shoulder and said, "That's impossible." I just came from there and saw him taking a bath. I suddenly broke out in a cold sweat, realizing that something was wrong. The person behind me launched an attack. I vigilantly blocked it. I asked who it was, then pointed my finger at him. Then he turned into a cloud of black mist and gradually dissipated into the air. A voice echoed from the air, saying, "We'll meet again." I thought, I've fallen for a trick to lure the tiger from the mountain. I hurriedly turned around and ran back. I thought they deliberately lured me away. Could it be to deal with Lu Qingji? I hurriedly shouted Qingji's name, then urgently pushed open his door. Lu Qingji was sitting on the bed looking at me, asking why I was in such a hurry. I came to his bedside and asked him if anyone else had come just now. Lu Qingji hugged me and said, "I just saw a black shadow outside the window." Before I had time to chase after it, Master came in. I thought, what is the black shadow? Could it be a spy from the demon tribe? Lu Qingji said his injuries hadn't healed and he was a little scared. I comforted him, saying not to be afraid. I thought, for his safety, I'll stay here tonight. Then I tucked him in. Chengji asked if I could sleep with him. I said it's improper for a master and disciple to share a bed. Chengji said, if master minds, then we can use the cat to separate us. Chengji lowered his head and said, I've been working very hard these past few days and wanted me to get a good night's sleep. Chengji turned his head away and said if I wasn't willing, then just forget it. I gently lifted his quilt and slipped into his bed. I pinched his cheek and said to him, you're still injured. Rest early. Lu Qingji and I rested quietly under the same quilt. Suddenly, Lu Qingji opened his eyes as if he had remembered something. He gently caressed my cheek. I was already asleep by this time. He sat up and looked at me, wanting to make me his forever.